Fletchery Bandy from? A lot of meetings tonight. You sure don't want. Oh yeah, that's right. It's the end of the month. Oh, that's what I meant. Yeah,
Do you
yeah.
remember the Walton issue
Often issue.
where he was called off the bench?
Oh,
Not Bruce Walton, excuse me.
Taylor.
No.
No. Whalen? Joe Whalen?
Wayland, thank you.
Joe Whalen, who made a bigger stink about Art in the Park than I
I
did.
shouldn't even
Oh,
mention
but
his name.
out there as a donor to Art in the Park. He was of it. I was so surprised. Must have come around after they built it.
And it was the mayor's public. So don't talk to me about it.
Much smaller than it originally was. What happened to that? Did you know? The Art in the Park, it's shorter than it used to be. Are you?
All right. Hello. I was trying to avoid the mic earlier. Hello, everyone. It is now 6:36. I am sorry. Tuesday, May 27th. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Cunningham Township Board. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Trustee Wu,
Here.
Trustee Evans, Trustee Hersey,
Here.
Trustee Colasetti,
Here.
Trustee Bishop,
Here.
Trustee Wilkin,
Here.
Trustee Quisenberry,
Here.
Mayor Williams,
Here.
Supervisor Chenoweth,
Present.
Assessor Owana. Okay.
All right. The first item of business is the administration of oath of office to our newly elected officers. Clerk, can you confirm that the oaths have been administered prior to this meeting?
Yes, that is correct. With the start of her term, we administered the oath to Supervisor Chenoweth, which we have. So congratulations on a new term.
Congratulations.
Happy to serve.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. All right. Next item of business is the approval of minutes from January 13th, February 10th, and March 10th meetings. Can I get a motion to approve?
And January 13th, move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Trustee Sharice, seconded by Trustee Grace. That motion passes.
We're gonna vote.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay.
Aye.
All right, all opposed say nay. All right, the ayes have it, that motion approves. All right, do I need to do that for each? All right,
Yes, anytime there's an item that has a vote, so our minutes will have them. We will also have that again for committee to verify bills, and then, of course, each of the items of new business.
correct. No, my question was each individual date, so the January 13th, January 10th, and March 10th.
So they are presented as an omnibus.
Okay.
So they could have been approved in one. When the motion was stated, was it just the first meeting?
Yes.
Okay, why don't we make a second motion then for the other two meeting dates, just for clarity for the record?
That I'm learning, y'all. All right. So I'd like to make a motion for the approval of the minutes for February 10th and March 10th meetings.
I move to approve those minutes.
Second.
All right. Approved by Trustee Sharice, seconded by Trustee Grace. All in favor, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. All opposed?
Aye.
Keep forgetting. All right. All opposed, say nay. All right. The ayes have it. Those minutes are approved. Thank you. All right. Are there any additional agenda items? No additional other than let's move into closed session. Let's see here. All right. All right, so now we will move on to public participation. If there's anyone in the public that would like to address the Cunningham Township Board, you may now walk up to the mic, speak your name into the record.
Thank you. My name is Esther Pat. I live in Urbana, and I'm the director of the Champaign-Urbana Tenant Union. First, I want to say how very grateful I am, well, that the Cunningham Township Supervisor has stepped up to address the vital shelter needs of the people forced from their homes by recent condemnations. And there isn't enough of that going on. I'm just so grateful for the Cunningham Township Supervisor's Office in general, but that specifically. And of course, I ask that you please support the resolution to approve the intergovernmental agreement. I also would like to ask you, in your capacity as city council members, but since this is on tonight's agenda, I did it here, to do two things. And one is to re-examine the Urbana relocation ordinance. There are some flaws in it. It was a fight to get the thing passed in the first place because of this resistance to the idea that the city should help people. That's a slightly biased statement, but that was what was going on at the time. We had a city attorney, or you had a city attorney who instructed the city staff and the mayor and the council that anytime the city condemned a property, it would be best if the city had no communication whatsoever with the tenants who were affected and have all communication through the landlord, who has been so naughty that they have to condemn on him. It was crazy. Anyway, so we got that 14-day time limit. I challenge any of you to get kicked out of your house and find a place to live in 14 days. The relocation assistance needs to be upgraded. And there are probably a few other things. The experts on this and the people in this community who have had more experience dealing with relocation than anyone else are Danielle Chenoweth and her staff. So partner, please, with the township to get the information about what you need to change. The other ask is a little more complicated, but it is important, and that is that you take a look at your property maintenance code enforcement procedures and ask what more can you do to prevent properties from deteriorating to the point of condemnation. Now, in this case, I'm informed that this time around with the Silver and Fletcher properties, you did have fairly short notice of it from the police and then discovered it was horrible. 12 years ago with the Silver and Fletcher properties with the previous owner, the city knew about the problem for a long time. And in fact, I don't want to pick on Urbana, so I'm going to pick on Champaign instead. At the Champaign Park Apartments, where they've condemned 26 of the 29 buildings, tenant union and City of Champaign Neighborhood Services were getting complaints for at least 5 years before the first apartment was condemned, and the first condemnations, I think, were already 2 years ago. And over again, people complained about ceiling leaks and mold in their apartments, about inoperable heat, about malfunctioning air conditioners, about water seepage, about roach infestation and bed bug infestation. And then if someone complained, the City of Champaign would go out and cite the violations. But then when the landlord didn't do anything, nothing happens. And we have a similar situation here in Urbana where there's a big gap between the deadline for compliance if the landlord doesn't comply and when the city finally does something. And I would just like you to have a look at it and see if there is in fact something more you can do. And frankly, I don't want to get into detail here, but the city council did, after a great political battle, pass an ordinance 12 years ago requiring the city to fine landlords, to issue tickets. The city's always had the power to fine landlords, but if you fine a landlord $750 a day and then take him to court a year later, it's over $100,000. And, you know, and it's a big thing. And the city legal department, and this isn't just Urbana, cities across the country do not like to sue landlords for code violations because it gets to be a big thing. And that's why we came up with the ticket idea. That if a landlord gets ticketed, they're going to, for $300, and you take them to city court like you take everyone else, they're going to go ahead and pay because, and then maybe they'll hire a lawyer, but it's not going to be the big thing. But if you wait until you're asking for $250,000 of fines, which I think is, it seems to me is the only time the city does it, it's too late. And then people get evicted. I mean, not evicted, constructively evicted. The city ends up evicting people who've been living with bad conditions for years, and there's no consequence for the landlord. And it's not that I want them punished, but I think if there were more consequences sooner in the process, they wouldn't drag it out to the point that it becomes this cause célèbre where there are dozens of people who need to be relocated. Anyway, Danielle Chenoweth and some of her key staff and I are eager to talk with the mayor and his building safety and legal department staff about how to help prevent something like this from ever happening again. And you can't prevent them all, but I think we could prevent some with some changes that we could talk about. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Is there any additional public input? All right, seeing none. Next, we have the committee to verify bills. Ms. Danielle Chenoweth.
Good evening. I'm going to go ahead for this next section on committee verify bills and the reports of officers and use the overhead. It would be helpful if you, PTV, if you could switch to the overhead as well. Yep, thank you. I appreciate that. So this last month in the town fund, I'll do a little bit of orientation for the new mayor as well, that basically we have two different funds. We have the town fund, which generally supports administration for the township as a whole and includes the assessor's office. And then we have the general assistance fund, which is for general assistance purposes only. So we have two different funds, two different levies. In the town fund, we had $59,062.22 in expenditures in this last month. And in the general assistance fund, a whopping $237,598.34. Our total expenditures were $296,666.56. The memo in the packet has a listing of not only the summary of the expenditures by the budget, but also line item by line item, the expenditures. So every month, the town board looks over the expenditures, and if they have any questions, feel free to ask questions about expenditures you may have. So this is the time when I would take any questions on the town bills, and you could also make a motion to approve if you so wish. And I'll go on to the supervisor's memo and the special memo after that.
Are there any questions? All right, seeing none.
Mayor, I have a question.
Yes, Mary Alice.
Yeah, so Danielle, I noticed in the bills that there was a payment for somebody's car repairs. And I was looking to see if I could find which line item it was. And I was wondering how decisions are made in terms of, there it is. So there was KCM Auto Care car repair for RRH client. It was $1,100.
Yep. So car repair is an eligible expense of all of our rapid rehousing clients, along with gas cards, bus passes, and other transportation issues. And so the criteria that's used is that the car has to be used for people to get to and from employment. And if the if it's like vehicle registration or car repair and the car repair is reasonable, the state allows us to pay up to a certain amount for car repairs. So it's not a very common situation that we do car repairs because we won't. But in this case, we have funds for that purpose. It's an eligible expense for that grant.
So I do know that the RPC also does some assistance with car repairs. I'm not entirely sure what their rules are about it, but I do know that they do have a program for it.
Yeah, so we typically send folks who are not funded through that program when it's open, funded through our program, or not eligible for that expense to RPC, because they have limited dollars, and we were given more dollars than we had even requested this year. We felt like it was a more judicious use of public funds for us to take care of that for our participants. And that's not uncommon. There are multiple places in town that provide the same services, and it all depends on what their funding line item is. So they do run out of funds with the transportation assistance, and so as much as we can avoid them running out of funds for folks who don't have other options, I think that's better for everyone.
All right. Thanks for the additional information.
Sure, no problem.
Are there any additional questions? All right, seeing or hearing none, can I get a motion to approve the bills from the Town Fund and General Assistance Fund?
So moved. A second?
All right, motion by Trustee Grace, seconded by Trustee Jaya to approve the bills. Is there any discussion? All right, seeing none, clerk, will you please call the roll?
Trustee Wu,
Yes.
Trustee Hersey,
Yes.
Trustee Colasetti,
Yes.
Trustee Bishop, Trustee Bishop,
Yes.
Trustee Wilkie,
Yes.
Yes.
Trustee Quisenberry.
Yes.
All right, that motion passes. All right, next we have reports of officers.
Great, so
Ms.
I'm gonna, I'll direct you, if you could put back up the supervisor's memo for the public to see as well. Thank you. So we went through the town bills report. I just typically, what the supervisor's memo is it's a team by team look at last month's activities. We provide data and metrics for all of our programs in the memo. It's not a requirement, but I think it's a really important part of showing the public what we do. It also provides us a point in time count so that we can see progress over time, and it helps us to monitor trends, and it helps the town board to be aware of those trends so that when it comes to budget time or contracts time, that the town board can be in the know and kind of understand what the needs are. We have multiple teams. I won't read through this all in detail. You have it, and it's lengthy. But I'll start with the general assistance team. That's a monthly grant for Urbana residents who are disabled or out of work, and we also layer supportive services on that, including health and housing. Is that me causing all this trouble? Just a quick request, since I'm going to be presenting for a few minutes, if you are on the phone, if you could mute yourself, that would be awesome, because it's a little loud. Great, thank you so much. So we had 24 new applications submitted last month. We had 93 active. That was a decrease from 104 residents, and you can see a breakdown. About half are on the disability track. They're awaiting SSI, SSDI, or we are helping them prepare an application. They have to have medical verification of a disability that would generally qualify for SSI, SSDI to be on that track. Then we have 29 on the education and employment track. The TANF track is a 3-month track for folks with children who are applying for TANF. Typically, TANF takes 45 days to apply and receive a response, and it's very frequent that there's a denial or a technical issue and you have to reapply. So we do just as flat 3 months, and we will support people through the TANF process. And then you'll see some demographics. We were very close to 0 homeless residents who are on general assistance. We're up to 21. It is down from 30 in March. That's primarily due to closures on the employment and education track due to non-participation in the work requirements. And then you can see some of the information here. I usually put in yellow what are some of the areas that I want to highlight. We're very concerned about layoffs at Social Security. They're requiring appointments now even for residents experiencing homelessness. If you put those two things together, it means they can't really get access. And we are reaching out to our SOAR statewide lead. We are the county-wide lead for SOAR, which is an element of SAMHSA at the federal level that helps people apply for disability, especially those who are homeless or have been homeless a while. It's very difficult to apply anyway, and if you're homeless and you have chronic health conditions, it's just pretty much impossible. So SOAR is a process that was put in place to help people with that. We do have housing first payments for folks who were on general assistance. We help them get into subsidized housing, and for some reason they struggled with compliance with our program. We still pay their housing. So to keep them housed, we'll pay their subsidized housing every month, and that actually has done wonders for keeping folks from homelessness. It's a payment of about $100 a month from our office. And those who are current GA participants, if they are not paying their rent to their subsidized housing, then I have the discretion to say, hey, we're going to pay your rent for you. And so I will put people on the Housing First track, and they'll get the difference in their check between what we paid in their rent and what's left over. And I don't have complaints about that program. It's a good program. The CARES team is our second team. It is a newer team that we put all of our emergency response under that. It's the Cunningham Township Assessment Response and Alternative Response and Emergency Services. And it is everything from front desk, rental assistance, utility assistance, short-term stays, emergency housing, et cetera. I do want to note for the town board that we're back up to almost 1,600 calls per service. Those are incoming calls for service just to our office, not the assessor, up from 1,300 in March and 1,230 in February. That's pandemic level calls for service. And it has just been off the chain. I don't know how else to put it. 56 applications were received and processed in April of rental assistance, up from 31 in March. We usually go into the summer season and rental assistance applications are very steeply increase over the summer as people's hours are cut back. Anyone who's talking with the University of Illinois could talk to them about how to better stabilize the economy locally so that they're not laying people off every summer. And then utility assistance, all federal staff at LIHEAP were laid off in April. And the proposed budget for next year seeks to eliminate the program. RPC is out of LIHEAP funds, but after I wrote this memo, we spoke and there will be some limited assistance for cooling this summer. So for people with active shutoffs, and for folks with disabilities or a senior, have a senior in the household, they can access some limited funds. So we have served a large number of households with our own utility assistance. This is only if they do not qualify for LIHEAP or LIHEAP is closed. So we really always send people to LIHEAP, LIWAP, et cetera. So you'll see those numbers as well, and you'll kind of can see over time it's been going. It goes down in the winter. You'll see transportation. We did 10 annual bus passes. Street outreach. We have a really high number of people on street outreach. In April, we had 62 households representing 68 residents. Usually, we would like to keep that around 30 to 40, so it's large. And I'll talk a little bit about the displaced residents. Our school outreach, you can see we served 236 families referred from Urbana schools, including 608 homeless children, homeless or housing insecure children in this year. We got 5 family referrals, including 15 children this last month from USD, and 4 family referrals from Crisis Nursery with 8 children. And then we do housing navigation and supportive services. So while people are on our wait list, we help people navigate and apply for all available housing options. And sometimes they don't even go into shelter because we're able to house them. We also support our general assistance participants who are homeless. And you can see we had a really good month. We got placements in our family shelter. We've got a placement in our hotel program, and we signed a lease with a family. So then Bridgestone housing team is our third team, and it primarily is our more transitional housing program. So you'll see we serve 24 households representing 29 individuals in hotels. Our program plan is only 12. So we've just kind of continue to squeeze blood from the turnip to house people in hotel program. We did have some good news from this last month. We had one person with disabilities, pretty significant disabilities, who's been in our program for over a year, had 3 surgeries while in the program, and has moved into a permanent supportive housing situation. And then we had 2 program participants who moved into permanent housing they can pay for on their own after some support with full-time employment. We'll get to rapid rehousing, but basically it looks like we'll get almost $100,000 more in rapid rehousing next year for a number of different reasons. And that is basically for homeless residents to move directly into independent housing. The biggest barrier to rapid rehousing is housing discrimination, which continues to be a problem in Urbana and Champaign. And then you'll see we really like to keep the number of families on our prioritization list at 1 or 0. And we have been there before, but we have not been there all the school year. So we have 8 families on our prioritization list. We like to not have anyone unsheltered. We have 3 who are unsheltered. And then we have other assistance. We have angel donor funds. You can see here, we do housewarming gifts. We have a digital inclusion program. We have a help desk where people can get support applying for our programs and related programs on Tuesday afternoons and Thursday mornings at the Urbana Free Library second floor. These are our 8 digital navigators who just got certified after attending a semester-long training events. We had over 50 people, including all of our former digital navigators, and that was on campus. Very exciting. I will just say that program has just been phenomenal, and the digital navigators staff our help desk at the Urbana Free Library. Food support, you'll see in April we served about 90 households. Typically we serve somewhere between 90 and 100 households a month. There's some data here in terms of first-time users rather than repeating users. And then Solidarity Gardens, we're at about 72 gardens now, and you can see all the various fruits and vegetables that we have planted here. We're working on moving forward with our SUN grant with the city of Urbana, and we also have a SARE grant to help with training and education. And then we had a number of events with PACE. We did a work authorization event, and then we did our staff development. Everyone in our office is now certified in CPR and the use of an AED, and everyone has gone through their annual sexual harassment prevention compliance. And you can track all of our trainings on our website. Before I go into the displaced residents, Emma, I just wanted to see if you had any questions for me.
Are there any questions? All right, trustee Sharice.
Danielle, I know you probably don't have an answer to this question, but how much is this, not our administration, but federal administration, affecting the increase of our homeless issues and all that stuff? What do you anticipate?
I think that the biggest threats to low-income residents in our community who we work with, and we work with all, I mean, we served 5,000 people last year, so, you know, a good portion of our population is cuts to food stamps and to Medicaid and any tampering with housing vouchers. And then targeting specific individuals for discriminatory activities and hate. But I think in terms of the, I know that work requirements sound good, but I just want to let the public know and the town board know that if you require someone who is able-bodied, and I put that in quotes, to work to receive food or like basic necessities like healthcare, then what you're doing is saying that everyone that the federal government is not aware of as having a disability will suffer greatly. And so the federal government already takes 2 to 8 years when they were like better staffed to determine disability. And so what that means is that all the people who struggle with a physical or mental disability or developmental disability or traumatic brain injury or intellectual disability who struggle to work, because in my experience, almost everyone who can work wants to. People want to be engaged in purposeful activity that gives to others. That is human nature.
Well, I was going to say, it seems, my understanding is that a lot of people that get help anyway are working anyway, but they don't make enough to actually
Yes.
live on.
Exactly.
Okay, so,
Yeah.
and
So
on
that-
top of that issue, we also have the issue that you were just talking about.
Correct.
Okay.
So we already had only 1 in 5 households that needed a housing voucher have it. So for like less than the U.S. population pays for storage units, you could house every single person who needs a housing subsidy. And for 1/7 of the cost of the military budget, you could house every single person in the United States who needs a housing subsidy. So we already had that situation before now. That said, I will say what it means for township on a day-to-day basis is primarily that we're gonna see an increase in participants because of precarity, layoffs and things like that. But in terms of our funding, thank God we're funded by our residents of Urbana and the state of Illinois. Right now, I'm feeling pretty solid, and the city and our funders, the county, et cetera. We are in a pretty stable situation. We just, anything that we can do from a policy perspective, as Esther Pat was mentioning, to basically protect folks and look at prevention, it's going to be really, that costs no money, right? Or very little. How can we put policies in place that protect residents? I think it's going to be really important. And then making sure that the budgets that we produce, they're moral documents, and they should reflect our values and priorities. And so we just need to look carefully at our budgets. It's not business as usual, as you know.
Okay, another question I had when you were talking about the calls for assistance that were coming in. how many of those calls, if you know, are repeated month by month by month? Or are there a lot of repeat callers? I mean, like, you know, some people that we help every month.
Yeah, absolutely.
How many, are there any, what's the ratio of repeat to new?
You know, I'd have to, I do have several interns who are starting this summer. One has a PhD and his focus is on stats, and I'd be happy to ask him, see if he'd be interested in helping out with that piece. I was comparing our calls for service to the Barry Dunn report, where the police receive 1,600 calls for service a month, because I think it's the same service area and similar metrics. Their incoming calls for service don't distinguish between unique one-time calls and repeat calls. So, but, you know,
I just want to get an idea of the population that is in perpetual need,
yes,
as opposed to the people, as folks, like you said, they got laid off and they can't, and what Ms. Pat was saying about, you know, you can't find a home in 14 days.
yeah.
So that's why I asked that question.
That's helpful. I think what I would probably want to pull is how many unique individuals in Urbana and unique households did we serve in a year? That might give us a picture of like, okay, in a given year, how many households are we talking about? And we can focus on Urbana, and then we can look at the county, because we do homeless services for the county, although most of our work is focused on Urbana.
Yeah, but we can also try to focus maybe possibly on a smaller population of people that are newly in need, and try to find a solution to that thing too. So when Ms. Pat was talking about, you know, like the condemnations and people not being able to find housing quick enough, then to me, that's a new need. If you've been laid off of a job and you haven't had to, you know, you've been working someplace for 10 years or whatever, and you've been, you know, comfortable in a particular place, and then all of a sudden you have no income, that is a new
That's correct.
problem.
Yeah.
So that's why I was asking that question.
And our new intern, one of the things that he is assigned already will be looking at our general assistance program. And one of the things in our application is how recent your like when your last job was essentially, and also your education level. And so he will be visualizing some of that data for us. I think that'll give us some clues.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any additional questions?
If I would, I'd like to move on to the displaced residents memo. And then I know that we're going to have a closed session shortly after. So if I could just give you the 211, especially when, as members of the public are here and the public may be watching. And we will come back to this at the rapid rehousing item. So this is kind of part 2 of my supervisor's memo. I usually don't have part 2, but here we go. The overview, I did list some of the root causes. I think we've seen a tightening of the housing market leading to a steep rise in rents, and we've been seeing 15 to 40% increases. I've seen 100%, but that's an outlier. I've seen 5%, that's an outlier. We see a lack of sufficient tenant protections, advocacy, and legal aid. In both cities, in particular, there's some protections in Urbana that don't exist in Champaign, and we could do better in Urbana. And then we saw, people keep asking, why are there so many homeless residents? Is it because we have so many services? I was like, nope, there's 38% increase in homeless families that is the point in time count of January 2024, not 2025, 2024, and 17% for individuals. And HUD, hopefully if they still have staff left, may let us know what 2025 looks like. All area shelters are confirmed to be full or operating over planned bed count like we are as of May 7th. Strides are only low barrier shelters full with a wait list of over 50 residents. And I just want to note that shelter bed numbers remain about half what they were 10 years ago. So when we're like, what's going on? Well, we have, Center for Women Transition was folded into a women's fund, and, we lost a lot of units on Church Street. And Salvation Army does not run a a shelter anymore. And there's almost 100 men in that shelter. So when you ask why are they full and is this an ongoing problem, it's really important to look at the history and the data. Then I want to point out the most recent crisis. Havenstone Apartments has 35 units, which were declared unfit for occupancy. We're working with 14 households. I list the situations because I want people to understand that it's pretty much all folks with vulnerabilities. There's not a single household without a significant vulnerability. And I do want to applaud the city of Urbana's tenant relocation ordinance for providing 2 weeks of housing. What we did is, as long as residents were working towards an exit plan, we have taken over paying for their housing, so they remained in shelter. And Housing Authority also stepped up to offer 2 weeks of hotel stays. So our stay came after those. Champaign Park Apartments, which I know is not Urbana, but I just want to, it's all, it's one homeless community. We have one low barrier shelter. All 29 units are now condemned. I know Esther mentioned 26, but as of last Wednesday, 29 units were condemned. They are owned by, both of these are owned by New York-based, I used to live in New York, I love New York, but what the heck? Got New York-based companies that really have allowed deplorable conditions. In Champaign and Urbana, I'm going to show you a few photos. I think the public needs to see photos of what the conditions are. It is horrific. We're working at 19 households at Champaign Park Apartments. We believe, based on our survey of those residents, that over 100 people are living there in those buildings, and it will be a matter of weeks before they're completely boarded up, and all 100 will be on the street. So please do not sweep people who are living in tents and throw their tents away a day after they pitched them, because there's not going to be another place for them to live. So we have made contact with a total of 33 households. I have been looking everywhere for money. Through our HHI grant, which is not yet totally solidified with the city of Urbana, but we are willing to move forward with levy funds if it is not solidified. Worked with the grants administrator, and he was comfortable with us moving forward with starting to spend. So $20,000 in HHI funding through the city of Urbana is paying for our case management, but case management ain't nothing if you don't got money for rent. I mean, it's something, but you can dry people's eyes and, as they're crying, and you can give them, some food and shoes. But, so I've really been beating my shoe on the table for funding for rental assistance. And what I've been able to do is cobble together, essentially City of Cunningham Township had underspent their rental assistance dollars, not their rental assistance, their rapid rehousing, which is a kind of rental assistance. They are out of rental assistance. And so they are transferring about $75,000 in rental rapid rehousing dollars to us. I'm also trying to repurpose some of our SMAS money from the city of Champaign. Anyway, I have now authorized our staff to basically support anyone who's actively working with our office towards rapid rehousing in either location to provide a temporary hotel stay through June. So the goal is that if we're working with people, it is just, you cannot get people into housing when they are actively unsheltered on the street. It's really hard. So that piece is really needed. So I'm gonna just skip to the punchline here. I gave a lot of background on who is getting what and what their situations are. I just really wanted to let people know that we have people living in basements in Champaign that are flooding with water right next to electrical boxes, and it is horrific. There are many occupied apartments without water, electricity, or heat, with regular flooding, burst pipes, water actively leaking from the ceiling, next to exposed wiring, and a lack of safety. Garbage collection is not happening. They're overflowing. And we still had people who were saying, oh, I'm still paying my rent. And they're saying it's new management and it's going to be cleaned up soon. So anyway, it's a bad situation. I do want to, I'm going to show you a couple of photos. This is Urbana. This is what it looked like when they went in to view Havenstone, and it should not be allowed to get to this. Here's a falling down ceiling. Here's an exposed ceiling. Here is black mold. Here's more black mold. Again, these are photos that happened, that were taken prior to condemnation. Condemnation happened soon after. This is garbage and unsanitary conditions, broken doors. You can see the broken door here. This is what it looked like. This is, sorry, I could take, there are also pictures that showed, like electrical cords coming out of windows. This is Champaign now, boarded up apartments, et cetera. You are not Champaign, but I just want to, you can see there is water next to an electrical box. Like, that is water next to electricity. Not supposed to happen. Garbage, unsanitary conditions, broken down doors. It's a similar situation in Urbana and Champaign. The punchline of this is we are cobbling together. We're building the plane as we fly it. We're cobbling together funds as we can. There has been no support from Champaign for any emergency housing. Here are the proposed exit strategies per household. So you can and this is, of course, changes on a day-to-day basis. But essentially, I will say with Havenstone, the model is we had a tenant relocation ordinance. There was an orderly process where we were notified in advance. We worked together on a condemnation date. We had people come through us to get to hotels. They signed program agreements. We explained what the rules were for them. We met their basic needs immediately: food, bus tokens, all of clothing, all the basic needs they had right then. We helped them move into housing. We gave them a case manager they could call if they had needs. The last time people were put in hotels, there was a lot of fights and their needs were not met, and I reported that to the town board. In this case, I just want to point out that people are oftentimes responding to the conditions in which they find themselves. And what we do is we criminalize their behavior when they're actually responding to the conditions they were in. So it's a very similar situation, same landlord. And if you just drop people into a hotel with no food, no clothing, no bus pass, it's 16 below outside, they're starving, you are going to see underground activity. You are going to see criminal activity. People are going to be in survival mode. It's going to be a bad situation. Let's not ever do that again. So in this situation, this model at least is a step up, which is that we took care of people's needs. And we were able to work with folks. We had several folks who said, I don't want to stay in the hotel, I have friends and family, or I'm not interested in working with you. That is the three that are represented who are not in the hotel. Otherwise, we're working on various referrals. You can see everybody else is housed. So Champaign Park Apartments, the fraction of a need. I know that this is not Champaign, but I'm just showing you it's kind of one pool. So what we'll get to tonight later, and we can discuss this, is the rapid rehousing piece, and just asking for your approval of an intergovernmental agreement with City of Cunningham Township that would allow us to receive those dollars, mix it with the dollars we have, and basically do a very quick turnaround rapid rehousing for the residents we're working with. Long term, we really have to talk about prevention. I don't want to ever, it should never get to this. It just should not be allowed to get to this. We have a rental registration program in this community. And we need to make sure that inspections are happening, and that tenants feel empowered to call in issues, but even if they don't. That's the thing, it cannot be a response-driven issue. It has to be much more proactive, and we should be looking for telltale signs like, electrical cords coming out of windows or broken windows or things like that, and really focused on the real perpetrator, who are the landlords and the owners, not the tenants. They are not the perpetrators in these cases. Thank you for hearing me out, and I'm happy to answer any questions. And then, of course, we are going to have an item to talk about RH, so you could also ask questions at that time.
Are there any additional questions for Danielle? All right, Trustee Sharice.
What I guess what I want to know, and I've asked this question before, is because it seems like it's a lot of absentee landlords out of state, out of city. Would it be helpful on some level if we insisted that there be a particular parameter of, like, if you own property and you're renting property, you have to at least be in the area somehow? Because my understanding is basically that with, especially these folks out of state, because this isn't the first time I've heard this. I've actually, talked to a couple of my constituents that have complained about some other places, and their management is in Chicago. Okay, when I went to look it up online, what do you suggest regarding absentee landlords? Because what is your suggestion? What is your solution?
So Esther, Pat, and I helped to author a rental registration program when we were both on city council. And one of the requirements of Urbana's rental registration program is that they have local management. They have to declare. I mean, the problem with the landlord situation is that in some cities, the city doesn't even know, like, you know who's paying the taxes through the treasurer, but that's it. You don't know who's managing, you don't have a local contact. So in Urbana, we have put that in place. The issue here was that there was a conflict, and is a standing conflict, between the owner and the local management, and they basically, they got rid of the local management, and then there was another local manager, and then there was a contest there. So it was a period of instability, and that probably should have raised red flags, and maybe it did. I'm not the city. So I would say I would encourage the city that if there is a change in the local contact, and there seems to be a fight between the whoever is the national or the out of town and the local, that's a really good time to be looking closely at what's going on. Because we do have that protection, so to speak, in Urbana. I'm really proud of that, and I think it's an important part of our system.
Would the city have the power to and somehow insist that owners of these properties show up here to explain those kind of issues? Is there
I think I would ask the city attorney the question of what you can compel an owner to do. We
Okay.
can't compel them to have a local contact that is legitimate, that the city could call, make sure that is a local contact, but I don't think, I don't know how you would compel somebody other than a subpoena in
Yeah,
court.
that's
And then
what I'm
their
saying.
lawyer would show up, so.
Also, I know that Illinois has a ban on rent control, and that, I think, would make a big difference, too, as far as affordable housing in Illinois, period. Do we have anything in play that you know of from our state representatives or anybody like that is maybe fighting to repeal that ban?
Yeah, there's been a number of groups that are looking at issues that are barriers to fair housing and affordable housing, including the ban on rent control. And the groups that we are a member of, Housing Action Illinois, which is a lobbying arm for, and policy shop for affordable housing. So I would encourage, and anyone can sign up as a Housing Action Illinois recipient of their blast. Is very helpful information to let folks know. And sometimes I will send to the town board opportunities to weigh in on issues that affect affordable housing. So I'll continue to send those to you because we are a member.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Trustee Jaya?
Thank you. Thank you so much for this report and all the work that you and your staff are doing. Just to clarify, if people are wanting to help, right, not in terms of donations, but they're aware of someone, they know someone who is homeless right now, or they're facing homelessness, what's the best way to direct them? Is it to Champaign Cunningham Township? What are the best ways we can be supporting people? Because I do think that more people are going to be aware that we have such a crisis, because there's a huge number of people who suddenly don't have housing, right? So I appreciate that reminder too of like, these are members of our community, don't be a jerk, I'll put it that way. But also thinking about like, how can we encourage people to help folks get connected to resources?
Yeah, so anyone can come by our office, and we have little business cards that are easy to hand out. I actually keep them in my car. I can bring you more. I've brought them to you before that are basically like what we offer, and what I'll do is when people come to me, I'll give them the card, and it's $1 to get to our office on the bus. So if you want to give people a bus token or $1 and a card, you can also call in a street outreach referral. So people can call our 384-4144 number. It's also on our website, and request a referral to check on an individual. You may want to ask them if they want a referral. And then if it is a family with kids in Urbana school or staying at Crisis Nursery, please encourage them to talk to their social workers, anyone in their school, about getting a referral, about anyone who's experiencing any housing insecurity. So what we did with the school system is we don't have people, the school district does not have to vet who's homeless and who's not homeless. You have a housing issue, let me give you a referral to Cunningham Township. A housing issue, let's do this. You could also do food referrals, et cetera, but most common is a housing referral. So Crisis Nursery with kids who are staying overnight can also do a referral. And like I said, we've changed our model so that anyone they will receive contact. The person who we receive a referral from, we will reach out within 48 business hours. And it's usually within 24 business hours. We'll make contact, we'll have a first available appointment, we will do an assessment with them, and then we connect them to whatever services, both the most urgent needs as well as to the longer term services. And sometimes people will say, hey, I need this, but when we get into it, there's a lot more needs, so those assessments really allow us to do that. So for families, that's really the best way. For individuals or families, we can dispatch somebody, or you can send them to our office. For individuals, I know that I mentioned there's a long wait at Strides, but they do receive some level of case management and supportive services, and they get in the queue to get services. And so I really encourage people to go through Strides so that they get into the kind of like continuum of care for homeless residents. They can do that through our street outreach, or they can do that through Strides. That said, you can't, you've got to realize when you don't have enough resources in a community. And again, like I said, we have like half the beds. When we look at emergency, like low barrier beds, we've done better at building transitional housing beds. I know Hope Village is coming online. I know See You at Home will have transitional housing. We have transitional housing in Urbana with See You at Home. We do transitional housing. So I think that we have built pieces of our continuum, but the low barrier shelter remains an issue.
I'll have just make a quick comment just to kind of piggyback off of what Sharice was saying. I think I'll have a conversation at some point this week with our attorney to maybe have a conversation with you and Ms. Pat if she's willing to come out of retirement around some ordinance stuff. But just in regards to, us revisiting some of those landlord contracts, right? Because this is long, those pictures show longer than just a year debate or, confusion or conflict between a landlord and a property manager, right? That goes beyond a year's time frame. So I think, if you ladies are up to it, I think just us revisiting, that contract and what that looks like, I think it's worth, and it's a start, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I've got a punch list of how I'd like to see that resolution or the ordinance updated. And I think we could make some improvements that, I just think would provide more tenant protections.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you for that.
Jaya?
Yeah, just to follow that, and I know we're kind of mixing roles here a little bit, but I know, I think it was last year, we had a lot of conversations about the number of inspectors we have in the city, so I think reviewing that too, to see, do we have an adequate workforce to make sure we're not waiting until we're getting to a point of things being condemned? And then I know the township has also talked about doing some testing to see if landlords are in compliance with our ordinances in Urbana. So I think those are just a couple other areas that I think are really important that the city could be doing more.
Yeah.
Are there any additional questions? All right, seeing none, I'm just gonna wait for the folks on the phone. All right, seeing none, we will move on now to unfinished business, which there is none. So our first item under new business is closed session for property pursuant to 5 ILCS 120-2 C5. Can I get a motion to enter into closed session?
So moved.
Second.
All right, the motion by Jaya, seconded by Sharice. Let me see here. Yeah. Clerk, will you please call roll? I'm sorry.
Trustee Wu,
Yes.
Trustee Evans,
Yes.
Trustee Hersey,
Yes.
Trustee Colasetti,
Yes.
Trustee Bishop,
Yes.
Trustee Wilkin,
Yes.
Trustee Quisenberry.
Yes.
All right, that motion passes. For the public, we are now going to enter into closed session and will return to council chambers for the remainder of the agenda items and subsequent meeting afterwards. Thank you. All right. Can I get a motion to return to open session?
So moved?
Second.
All right, moved by Jay, seconded by Sharice. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Trustee Wu,
Yes.
Trustee Evans,
Yes.
Trustee Hersey,
Yes.
Trustee Colasetti,
Yes.
Trustee Bishop,
Yes.
Trustee Wilkin,
Yes.
Trustee Quisenberry.
Yes. All right, thank you. Motion passes. All right, now we will move on to our next item of new business. The item is a special meeting of the electorate agenda for town board approval. Danielle?
Excuse me, I'm just getting my place. Okay. We're on, wait, hold on. Huh? You would think. Okay, hold on, thank you. I have asked the clerk to call a special meeting of the electorate and to prepare an agenda that would allow us to, for the electorate to provide power to the town board for the purchase, sale, or disposition of township property. And so you have before you the proposed agenda that the clerk has put forward. Because I haven't done a special meeting before, the clerk probably knows the proper process in terms of motions and seconds, so I would defer to the clerk on them.
Consideration of this agenda is very similar to the agenda that we have for the annual town board meeting that you guys adopt every March as well. Following approval of the town board, this agenda will be advertised in the newspaper not less than 15 days ahead of the meeting, and it will also be posted publicly at 3 places within the municipality. Here at City Hall in the North Vestibule, where all notices are posted, at the township primary office at 205 West Green Street, and then also additionally at the Urbana Free Library.
Grace?
Thank you. I just had a question, clarifying that this would be Monday, June 16th at 6:30, and seeming to mean that we think this would be finished within 30 minutes, and if not, if we would just delay council meeting, just like it were a town board meeting, like tonight.
So yes, in our city code, committee of the whole will start after whatever prior meeting precedes it. So on June 16th, the order of the meetings would be first this considered meeting of the electorate, which is not a meeting of the township board, it's a member of registered voters of the township, followed then by a regular meeting of the Cunningham Township Board as well after that meeting. And then the third meeting that evening will be, I believe, a Urbana City Council Committee of the Whole meeting, because I believe that's the third Monday in June, if I'm not mistaken.
Lots of meetings. Thank you.
Are there any additional questions? All right, seeing none.
I do have one more
Sharice?
question. As far as letting people know what the, you said it'd be at the library, at the township, here, and there was another place?
Yeah, it will also be advertised in the News Gazette, which is the exact same noticing process for the annual town board meeting and is outlined in state law regarding how to advertise meetings of the electorate. It'll also be on our website as well, like all regular meeting agendas are.
Can I ask two more questions? Because the biggest complaint I hear from my constituents is how they don't know. And my constituents don't necessarily read the News Gazette. They don't subscribe to the News Gazette. And of course, they don't have transportation all the time to get here. Is there a way that we can put this notice also on maybe WILL and I forget the other radio station, Mayor, what is it? WEFT
So
as a PSA?
So I hear you. all agendas of the city, including the agendas for tonight's evenings, are sent out to both the city council and also a public release email group, which is members of the press who have requested to receive agendas for all city meetings. So they do receive it via that. As far as being able to advertise over the radio, the clerk's office only has a budget for publications, which is to be utilized for printed media. Beyond that, I'm unsure if another city department or the township has funds available for such advertising, but traditionally we follow what is outlined in the state law, which is the newspaper, the printed publication of the agenda, and as an addition beyond that, we also email it to the press and put it on our website.
Okay. I can put this on my Facebook page?
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, are there any additional questions? All right, can I get a motion to approve the special meeting of the electorate agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion to approve by trustee Grace, seconded by Jaya. Is there any discussion? All right, clerk, will you please call the roll?
Trustee Wu?
Yes.
Trustee Evans?
Yes.
Trustee Hersey?
Yes.
Trustee Colasetti?
Yes.
Trustee Bishop? Trustee Bishop? Trustee Wilkin?
Yes.
Trustee Quisenberry?
Yes. All right, that motion passes. All right, next we have resolution number T 2025-05-005R, a resolution authorizing certain individuals to sign checks for Cunningham Township. Danielle.
This is a very straightforward resolution that essentially allows us with 3 different offices to have at least 2 check signers at every office location. And our checks are double signature. And we will sometimes need to move checks on a daily, we make checks on a daily basis, but we'll need to move checks quickly to avoid eviction for folks. And so there has been some slowdown in checks at times just with moving into 3 locations. We've also had some change in our personnel, and I've promoted up a management team. So there are new deputy and manager, Carrie, Deputy Shayla Kenyon are now represented. Those are the only 2 new names that are listed here. Then we've removed employees who are no longer with us so that they were already moved from our bank accounts.
Awesome. Are there any questions? No, seeing or hearing none. Can I get a motion to approve resolution number T 2025-05-005R?
So moved.
Your second?
I'll second.
Motion to approve.
I'm sorry, I have a slight friendly amendment that was requested, which is Ivana Owana's name is misspelled. So if the correct,
That was corrected.
it was corrected?
Yes.
Oh, good job, Darcy, thank you. Yes, I was looking just now. Never mind, I have no friendly amendments.
All right. So the motion to approve was by trustee Grace and seconded by trustee Jaya. Is there any additional discussion? All right, seeing as though there are none, clerk, will you please call the roll?
Trustee Wu?
Yes.
Trustee Evans?
Yes.
Trustee Hersey?
Yes.
Trustee Colasetti?
Yes.
Trustee Bishop?
Yes.
Trustee Wilkin?
Yes.
Trustee Quisenberry?
Yes. All right, that motion passes. Next, we have resolution number T 2025-05-006R, a resolution authorizing the supervisor to sign an intergovernmental agreement for rapid rehousing between the city of Champaign Township and Cunningham Township. Danielle.
This is a follow-up on my presentation during reports of officers. But essentially, the intergovernmental agreement that is in your packet has been reviewed by City of Champaign Legal, and I have a written approval of it. It is going to their town board on June 10th, and it's before you tonight. It essentially allows City of Champaign Township to make Cunningham Township a sub-recipient of their rapid rehousing funds, both through home funds and ESG, which means Emergency Solution Grant funds. And the total is about $79,000. And that will allow us to essentially house those with income who have been displaced by Havenstone, at Havenstone Apartments and Champaign Park Apartments. We expect that these dollars would support about 12 households.
Are there any questions? No? All right. Sharice?
Okay. On here, it says 75,566. Is this, am I looking
Yeah,
at the
the
correct
amount
thing?
in the IGA is, there's two different pots. So essentially, home IDHS funds are 57,240, and ESG funds are 20,976.
Okay, now, yes, now
So
I
it's
see.
two different pots, and we've already been in contact with IDHS, and they've essentially approved in writing. As soon as this goes through, we'll be able to change it in the portal and have access to those dollars going back to May 1st.
Okey doke.
Are there any, Grace?
Sorry if I'm just missing it. I think maybe if Sharice was getting at, there's the different numbers in the resolution itself versus the agreement. Is that, okay, in the therefore clause of the resolution?
Wait, hold on a second. 75. Before 7. Yeah,
That
hold on a
54 should be
second.
57.
Yep, there's been so many little, this may be a remnant of the fact that City of Champaign is also spending down their grant. So let me make sure I have the late list. Yeah, it should say 57. If the resolution should match the IGA that was approved. Let me make sure that I have the. I'm looking at the actual approval from Champaign just to make sure that it's an error just on the resolution's part. 57, 240, and 20. Yes, so if the if you could just amend, I'd ask for a friendly amendment so that the numbers of the resolution match the latest IGA. There is a delay, as you know, our town board meeting was delayed by a week, and there were a few tweaks to the IGA. But the IGA, the intergovernmental agreement, has the most recent numbers.
So I would just recommend to the board, because we don't currently have a motion on the floor, that when a motion for approval is made, that language is included in the motion so that the numbers in the resolution are modified to match the latest values reflected in the IGA.
Okay.
I'd be happy to do that unless there's other questions. Or, yeah.
So what?
Before the motion is made, do you have another question?
No, I was just, you want the numbers that would be 57,240 and the number, and 2976? Those are the numbers, Danielle?
Yeah, it's
That's-
the 57,240 and 20,976.
Okay, that's what I'm talking about, yeah.
Then I would move for approval, resolution number T 2025-05-006R, resolution authorizing the supervisor to sign an intergovernmental agreement for rapid rehousing between the city of Champaign Township and Cunningham Township Supervisor's Office, with the resolution amended to reflect the numbers in the agreement of $57,240 and $20,976.
Second.
All right, motion made by Grace, seconded by Sharice. Any further discussion? No? All right, clerk, will you please call the roll?
Trustee Wu,
Yes.
Trustee Evans,
Yes.
Trustee Hersey,
Yes.
Trustee Colasetti,
Yes.
Trustee Bishop,
Yes.
Trustee Wilkin,
Yes.
Trustee Quisenberry,
Yes. All right, that motion passes. With no further business before this body, this meeting is adjourned. We will begin the special city council meeting momentarily. Thank you all. All right. Hello again. The time is now 8:22 on May 27, 2025, and I'd like to call this special meeting of the Urbana City Council to order. Clerk, will you please call the roll? Approval of minutes of the previous meeting, which there were none, hence why we are here now. All right. Next item is addition to the agenda. Are there any additions? All right. Seeing as though there are none. The next item of business is presentation and public input. We will take our presentations first. So our first presentation is Summer Camp for Urbana Youth with Dream and the Urbana Police Department. Please come up front and introduce yourselves.
All right. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. One of the things that I wanted to implement upon being hired here is community relations, starting from age 5 to senior citizens. So we're on the track of doing just that. One of the things I did when I was in Virginia before coming here is looking at some of the leaders in the city, particularly with our youth. And the gentleman to my right was highlighted on LinkedIn almost monthly. And he and I engaged in conversation, and we put together something for Urbana youth. And I'll let him take it from here.
Evening. It's a pleasure to be back in front of you. I want to open by saying Dream is coming back to Urbana. We were here prior to the pandemic, and we were doing programming at CU Church, Weber Street Church. And so, you know, the pandemic shut down many things, so it shut down our Urbana program. But in partnership with the police department and many other partners in the community here in Urbana, we are ready to come back and do some great work to support our boys by mentoring them, loving on them, helping them with school, and just helping them with life. So I have a quick
Could you talk more into the mic so that
I'm
everyone
sorry.
can hear you?
Okay, I'm sorry. So we do have a PowerPoint to share with you with information about the program. So the mission of the program is really to create a safe and positive space for male youth of Urbana. We're going to really stress conflict resolution as one of our core components of the program. We also will do many activities that is going to increase life skills, increase engagement, and also increase wellness and health. And we plan to empower our youth so that they definitely succeed and thrive in the Urbana community. So this is a collaboration, as I said, with the police department and other partners, and I'll get to those later. But we really want to go into this, this program working together for a common goal, and that is to engage Urbana city youth to strengthen positive relationships and outcomes. So we really want to foster those positive, collaborative, helpful relationships with our young people, educate Urbana youth and citizens about conflict resolution as we think about violence prevention and other ways to increase wellness in our community. Teaching conflict resolution is something that we need to do in the community, in the church, and also in the school building. So we want to make that a part of our program. And just do a lot of other engagement activities with students at the program, in the community, and hopefully be able to travel and expose them to other opportunities across the state and maybe across the nation. They may have a chance to go to Malawi, Africa with us one day. So it's a pilot program. And so although DREAM is coming back and although DREAM is serving well over 400 youth in our community, we realize that we do not have a home or solid relationships in Urbana. And so we really want to approach this as a pilot program where we're learning and growing through the process. And the goal is to pilot this program with boys entering 6th grade. So we're going to start to identify 5th graders this semester, well, the end of this semester, and transition into a summer program. And the summer program will all be about relationship building. We want to get to know them. We want them to get to know us. We want to have fun with them. And we also want them to have a sense of belonging to the program. So we will identify 5th graders who are transitioning to 6th grade, looking at 10 to 20 kids to begin the pilot this June. And again, we plan to transition to after school because we want to continue to support them in their development and growth. So we have a list of activities, conflict resolution, as I mentioned before, life skills, everything from financial literacy to how to work on a car. We're going to do all of that, all hands-on activities. We're also going to stress physical and mental health awareness. So we'll work with the police department and other agencies to teach mental health support. And also we're going to incorporate physical education into our program so that we're teaching them about physical health as well. Team-based activities and educational supports. So we plan to visit them at their school and also to visit them in their home so that we can provide the support that they need. The next couple slides are ideas or plans for how we will engage the youth in conflict resolution training. So we'll use role-playing and scenarios, we'll use movies and other games so that it is engaging and they're learning from it and also they're enjoying it as well. So the program staff, the program staff would include program staff from DREAM and also officers who are involved in the community services or critical intervention team, and also local volunteers. So we'll have a site coordinator hired through DREAM, achievement coaches, those are the people who do the day-to-day activities with our students, and we also plan to hire high school students from Urbana to be a part of the program as well. And then from the police department, we will have policemen, a social worker, and other program and service providers who will come alongside us to run the program each and every day. And we also want to have volunteers to be a part of this. So we'll create some opportunities for volunteers and make sure those are marketed in the community so that we can really show that this is a community-focused program with many players committed to the outcomes of our young people. And the program partners, so since we submitted this PowerPoint, we have gained the support of the Urbana Park District, so they will be one of our partners as well. They are gearing up to support us in the summer with the Urbana van and coming to our location and doing some activities. So the lead partner would be DREAM. The other partners, the Urbana Police Department, CU Church, Bradley Learning Center, and Hoist. All of us will be working together to pilot, implement, and also evaluate. You know, we want to make sure we're collecting data to see if the program is effective and how can we tweak the program to improve and strengthen it. The next couple slides will cover the roles of DREAM and also the roles of the Urbana Police Department. As I mentioned before, we will cover staffing. We will help to recruit volunteers, definitely be engaged in leading program implementation. DREAM has several initiatives to support families and parents. So the parents who are here in Urbana can be a part of those initiatives. It's called the DREAM Parent School, and we're teaching them parenting skills and also their own self-care and also their own mental health. Community engagement, program evaluation, and also school collaboration. And the police department will provide staff for the program. So we will have policemen there with our staff working together. In other types of volunteer service hours, they will help teach the life skills, help teach the conflict resolution, and many other ways they will support the program with the hands-on and engagement activities. So that is the program in a nutshell. I also want to say congratulations for your appointments to the City Council. After swearing in at the Lincoln Square Mall, we brought our small dreamers out to see that, and the memories of their faces, how it was like lighting up and just taking all of that in, will stay with us forever. So we appreciate the support, and again, congratulations and thank you for your time.
All right. I have a question, if I can just ask. The initial pilot program being 10 to 20 kids, what's the selection process of those students?
We are working with some individuals at the school district to identify boys. We are prioritizing boys who may have had struggles in 5th grade so that we can do a wraparound program or model with them to help support them in their 6th grade year. So we anticipate that we will definitely have boys who need us the most in the pilot, but it'll be open to any 5th grader that may be eligible and interested in the pilot.
And considering that this is, I'm sorry, Sharice, I was just going to say, considering that this is a summer program, is there a plan or desire to, partner with or reach out to the CU one-to-one, mentors comes to mind, right? Because while very effective, I was a mentor, my wife's a mentor, very effective. I know my mentee, right? I'm just picturing him. It's only during that school year, right? So is that something that you guys are considering, willing to do? Is that even an option? And if not, how can we make it an option?
Yeah, absolutely. I think having CU one-to-one mentoring involved provides that school-based support that they will need. And so we will love to partner with them, and I can reach out to them and have that conversation. Or you can connect us, Mayor Williams.
We can make it happen either
All
way.
right,
So
cool.
thank you.
Thank you. Yes,
Sharice.
ma'am.
The question I have is, this is mainly for our male students.
Yes, ma'am.
During year-round, I know this is a summer thing that you're talking about now, but we're going into the school year as well?
This will be a 12-month program. Our goal is to engage, support, and build relationships with them. So we plan to be a part of the summer, after school, and also do activities during the breaks as well.
Regarding volunteers, can it be male and or female? Or
Yep.
male and female
Yes,
volunteers?
ma'am. Yes.
Okay,
And in any age as well.
okay, in any age. I just wanted to make sure that, I was thinking, because I think about another mentoring program, I know that it's mostly black males that do the mentoring. Actually, it's all black males that do the mentoring, and it's a great program. But I wanted to know if in fact others would be able to also mentor these youth that you're going to
Absolutely.
be working. Okay.
Absolutely. We want to demonstrate a village, and so in that village, they will see people who look like them, people who don't, young, old, teenagers. So that's what we're trying to create with this program.
Are there any additional questions? Any other? No? No? All right.
Cool.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
And also, could I get a copy of your PowerPoint when you have opportunity?
That's all right. All right, next we will have the mayoral proclamation, and that's my cue. Come on out. Now remember to face the audience this time too, so. How you doing? Sean, we've met before. Yes, all right. Whereas historic preservation is a powerful tool for providing diverse housing options, revitalizing neighborhoods, fostering community pride, and maintaining the unique character of a place, all while enhancing quality of life and promoting sustainability. And whereas the city of Urbana has adopted a historic preservation plan and currently recognizes 20 local historic landmarks and 3 local historic districts. And whereas historic preservation is relevant to communities across the nation, urban and rural alike, and benefits people of all ages, backgrounds, and walks of life. And whereas it is important to celebrate the role of history in our lives and to acknowledge the efforts of dedicated individuals and organizations who work to preserve the tangible heritage and shapes us as a community. And whereas the city of Urbana continues to support historic preservation by encouraging both the conversation and adaptive reuse of historic structures for multifamily and commercial purposes. And whereas the Historic Preservation Commission celebrates the long-awaited renovations of the former Urbana Lincoln Hotel, designated both a local historic landmark and a National Registered property, into the Hotel Royer, a Hilton Tapestry boutique hotel that will contribute to the vitality of downtown Urbana. And whereas the preservation and conservation, man, I am so sorry, y'all. The Preservation and Conservation Association, PACA, marked the 120th anniversary of Joseph Royer Home, located in the Joseph Royer Local Historic District, with an open house and public reading from Fairy Book by Adelaide Royer, celebrating its own 100th anniversary of publication. And whereas the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign's Department of Landscape Architecture and the Champaign County History Museum are honoring mid-century modern design with their exhibit Making Place for Arts at Home, performance, and mid-century modern architecture at the Granite Art Museum, as well as a special guided tour for 4 mid-century modern homes on May 31st, 2025, in observance of National Preservation Month. Now, therefore, I, Deshaun Williams, Mayor of the City of Urbana, Illinois, do hereby proclaim the month of May 2025 as National Preservation Month. Thank you.
I'd like to accept this proclamation on behalf of members of PACA, Phyllis Winters-Williams and Susan Apple, and also for Joseph Pryor for the Hotel Royer, and for Dr. Kate Holliday and Adeline Evans from the UIUC Landscape Architecture Department. It's a pleasure to work with great partners like that. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good one. All right, that's what happens when it leaves my glasses. All right. Let me see here. All right, now we will move on to public input. If there's anyone, any member of the public who'd like to speak, please approach the mic. All right, seeing as though there aren't anyone here, is there anyone, any written public input that's been asked to read into the public? No? All right. Now we will move on to council input. Does anyone have anything to share or? No council input. I will make a comment just to remind people, folks out there, that the Imagine Urbana Open House Town Hall will be tomorrow, May 28th, from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. right here in council chambers. So please, please, please come if you've had any questions whatsoever about the plan. That is going to be the time to come speak up, allow your voice to be heard, and I'll be here. We'll have a great conversation around it. So tomorrow in council chambers, May 28th, 6 to 8 p.m. All right. Is there anyone else? Grace.
If I may just ask a procedural question on that, if that would be televised, that listening session tomorrow?
So it will not be televised because it is not a meeting of a meeting body. However, I did issue a notice that a majority of a quorum may be in attendance because, of course, we are all invited. And if you happen to attend, you are welcome to and have conversations, just as a reminder that no more than 2 electeds should have conversations about city business outside of open meetings. But no, the meeting will not be televised. I do understand from the press release submitted by Andrea Rudy, though, that feedback will be gathered from that, and a final report on feedback provided at that listening session will later then be presented to council at a future meeting.
I do have a quick question. I guess kind of piggybacking on that. Is it possible to do Facebook Live? I don't know if I'm getting into the weeds, and I'm sorry if so, but just ask.
I'm unsure about the viability of Facebook Live because, to my knowledge, that is not a feature that we have previously utilized from city social media. However, I can follow up with UPTV. It is a bit short notice, but to inquire if we are capable of recording it or providing some level of televising, because I do know that we do stream on YouTube all of our meetings as well, in addition to on cable, so I can follow up on that.
Okay, all right. Any additional questions? All right, Jaya?
Well, it's not related to that. Okay. I just, as we come to the end of May, I just wanted to quickly acknowledge that this month is Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, and certainly for myself, very proud to be one of the Asian American council members representing the city of Urbana.
Thank you. All right. There's no additional input. Now we will move on to unfinished business. We have ordinance number 2025-04-012, an ordinance amending Urbana City Code, Chapter 14, Section 14-7, regarding the schedule of fees. This item was presented last month and has been placed on file for public inspection for the last 30 days. Elizabeth, do you have a presentation?
No, we did that 30 days ago when we
30,
placed it on file, so I don't think anything else is necessary. We have not received any additional input.
Awesome, all right. Can I get a motion to approve? Oh, I'm sorry, James.
I'll make a motion.
No.
I move ordinance number 2025-04-012, an ordinance amending Urbana City Code, Chapter 14, Section 14-7, regarding the schedule of fees.
That's a motion made by James. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second.
All right, I'll give it to Chandra. Motion made by James, seconded by Chandra. Is there any additional discussion? All right, seeing none, clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Wu?
Yes.
Councilmember Evans?
Yes.
Councilmember Hersey?
Yes.
Councilmember Colasetti?
Yes.
Councilmember Bishop?
Yes.
Councilmember Wilkin?
Yes.
Councilmember Quisenberry?
Yes.
All right. That motion passes. All right, now moving on to reports of officers. Are there any reports? No? All right. And with no further business before this body, this meeting is adjourned. This meeting will be immediately followed by our rescheduled Committee of the Whole meeting chaired by Councilmember Wilkins. Thank you.
Okay, I'll call to order this meeting of the Urbana City Council Committee of the Whole, rescheduled meeting on Tuesday, May 27th. Could we please have a roll call to order?
Councilmember Wu,
Here.
Councilmember Evans,
Here.
Councilmember Hersey,
Here.
Councilmember Colasetti,
Here.
Councilmember Bishop,
Here.
Councilmember Wilkin,
Here.
Councilmember Quisenberry,
Here.
Mayor Williams.
Here.
Thank you. Next item of business is approval of minutes from 5/12/2025 City Council meeting. Any discussion?
Move
or
to
motion?
approve.
Second.
Moved by Sharice, seconded by James. I believe we did have just a logistical correction that the clerk's taking care of as well.
Yes, yep. There was a vote that we will correct. Thank you.
Any discussion, changes? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, those minutes pass. Additions to the agenda, are there any additions? Seeing none, next is presentations, public input. If anyone in the audience would like to address the Committee of the Whole, please approach the microphone. We've got quite a few emails to read. If the clerk could help keep us on our time limit here. I think Councilmember Colasetti will help. Maybe we can go back and forth on some. So these were some that were received largely from the May 19th meeting, which was rescheduled for today. So all of those will be read today as well. Dear City Council members, I wish to highlight that more than 200 people, a large number, recently signed a petition for protecting historic Urbana from the proposed 2025 comprehensive plan. We want the new comprehensive plan to maintain the current R1, R3 zoning and the protections that they afford all residents of the city of Urbana. Importantly, these protections include meaningful public input and a vote by City Council on individual requests for exceptions to the zoning. We do not want accessory development units, duplexes, triplexes, quadruplexes, and small apartments by right where they are not currently allowed without an exception that is publicly considered and voted on by council. Staff may consider these types of developments innocuous anywhere, but we don't. And we are the people who live here in Urbana's historic neighborhoods, and we know them best. We want our local democratic processes maintained and strengthened, not diminished. For more than 40 years, West Urbana residents have spoken clearly and consistently that we want the characteristic of our historic neighborhood preserved. In response to rapid and unregulated development of large student apartments in West Urbana during the 1980s, West Urbana residents fought for and won protections by the city's adoption of the 1990 Downtown to Campus Plan, which is a neighborhood preservation plan. The Downtown to Campus Plan was incorporated into the comprehensive plan at that time, and its tenets were subsequently incorporated into Urbana's current comprehensive plan from 2005. We want these protections and the preservation forward philosophy of the 1990 Downtown to Campus Plan to also be incorporated into the next comprehensive plan. The proposed comprehensive plan is deeply flawed because, one, it is unnecessarily and disadvantageously vague. Two, it is not grounded in objective data. If we compare the 2005 comprehensive plan with the proposed plan that would replace it, the quality of the former is much greater than the latter. For example, the 2005 plan has highly detailed maps for each neighborhood that directly correspond to the subsequent zoning maps, whereas the proposed replacement plan has only one undetailed map for the entire city with vague, broad categories and no specific maps for each neighborhood. Consider the Lincoln-Busey corridor. When staff were asked what was proposed there, they first stated that just the properties facing Lincoln would allow for large mixed-use apartments. But when pressed further, they said that the new map drew a broad line that included many interior houses, something the neighborhood strongly opposes, because there were exceptions made for some past developments that pushed into the low-density residential interior. Such a strategy is a game of dominoes because every exception that takes out another further interior house would then logically allow for a whole additional column of interior houses to be knocked down for apartments. In contrast, if we look at the 2005 map, each parcel was marked indicating both the past exceptions and the intent to maintain the remaining low-density residential interior of the block, which is what the neighborhood wants. Moreover, a vague plan would allow developers to claim that almost any scale of development is supported by the plan, but most anywhere in the city, that's not good planning. The fact that staff proposed that the current plan be adopted before a housing study is conducted demonstrates that the proposed plan is not based on objective data, but rather it is based on a personal philosophy that Urbana needs more of all types of housing everywhere. The latter is not an effective way to plan or to run a city. In Esther Pat's recent letter to council, she modeled for all of us what critical thinking and evidence-based decision-making looks like for making important decisions that affect our city. We should expect no less for the new comprehensive plan. Respectfully, Eric Sachs.
Right. Next one, it says, please read my comments aloud. Hello, my name is Derek Briles, and I'm a resident of Urbana Ward 4. I'm writing in support of the ordinance that would establish approval procedures and transparency for the purchase of surveillance technology by the Urbana Police Department. Despite frequent claims by Chief Boone and recommendations from Barry Dunn, the UPD seems no more transparent or committed to community input they did before any of this began. I've had the pleasure of hearing and reading UPB budget requests and found them entirely absent of any of the data that Chief Boone claims he uses in decision-making. This lack of openness is troubling. UPD does not seem to be a good steward of the resources they already have. Very little data is made public, which makes it difficult to be informed on the success and failures of UPD. Given the apparent secrecy under which they operate, I do not trust UPB with the purchase of surveillance technologies such as ALPRs without their review and approval. In addition to an Urbana resident, I am also a proud member of the Party for Socialism and Liberation. While Boone was making emotional pleas for additional officers with no clear plan for what they would do, my comrades and I went into East Urbana neighborhoods that are so often maligned for being hubs of violent crime, and we spoke with residents there. The majority of people we spoke with did not feel additional policing was the solution. Rather, most people felt safe, and they called for basic things like streetlights, not more cops on the streets. People actually seem very distrustful of the police. In fact, the police are specifically what makes some residents feel unsafe. You can read more here, and there's a link. While this is a small sample size of residents, it appears to be more than UPD or the city government has done to meet people where they are and hear their concerns. This proposed ordinance is a big step in the right direction towards transparency and collaboration. I urge all alderpersons to consider this very carefully and make the decision that builds bridges into the community, not walls patrolled by cops who don't even live in this community.
Next one from Steve Fay. Dear Mayor Williams and City Council members, thank you for your service to the Urbana community. Councilmember Evans recently shared his reasoning for voting no on the appointment of Police Chief Boone, which was helpful in understanding his perspective. I am writing to respectfully ask Councilmember Wilkin to likewise share her reasons for voting no, as many community members have expressed interest in understanding the rationale behind her decision. To help keep the public informed, I would also like to invite all council members to consider offering a brief comment when voting present or against an appointment. I appreciate those of you who have spoken with the media to share your thoughts and explain your votes. Thank you for your time. I look forward to hearing your responses. Once again, thank you, Steve Fay, Urbana resident, Ward 7.
Next, to be read into the record, we are discouraged about the zoning changes in the West Urbana neighborhoods that are proposed in the Imagine Urbana Comprehensive Plan. It appears that the Plan Commission and the Urbana City staff planners wish to increase the density within the historic West Urbana neighborhood for the primary benefit of predatory developers. We've lived in Urbana since the mid-1970s as renters and homeowners. We bought a distressed property on West Iowa Street in 1978, and over the decades improved our residence into a comfortable and energy-efficient home. When we began our careers, we chose our neighborhood for its proximity to the University of Illinois and because it has R2 residential zoning. When purchasing a home, there is at least an implicit contract that through the zoning ordinance, the city will protect the investment of owner-occupied residents. The proposed zoning changes, which allow for more multifamily homes and higher density housing in West Urbana, would undermine the character of Urbana's historic neighborhoods. Please reflect that we, the people, through our work and investment in our city, have made our neighborhood unique. The West Urbana neighborhood was awarded by the American Planning Association as one of 10 great neighborhoods in America. The citation is, in part, reads the following. Located between two dynamic areas, the University of Illinois and downtown Urbana, West Urbana has maintained its unique neighborhood identity for more than a century, refusing to succumb to the pressures of high-density development or issues surrounding absentee landlords. Many historic properties remain today the result of an active citizenry and sustained planning efforts. The American Planning Association has selected West Urbana as one of 10 great neighborhoods in America for 2007 in recognition of the neighborhood's sustainable design, commuters who walk, bike, or ride transit at higher than average rates, inviting neighborhood spaces, and community focus on enhancing quality of life. Making a great neighborhood isn't magic, but as West Urbana shows, it takes a community where residents are involved with their neighborhood and plan for its future, end quote. Throughout these many years, our city staff and planners seem to have a determined effort to diminish the quality of our neighborhood that was so well described by the American Planning Association. Over the years and after attending countless meetings, our view is that the principal focus of our city planners is to encourage predatory developers and absentee landlords. Perhaps our current planning staff and the Plan Commission should carefully consider the citation by the American Planning Association. Planners do not make a neighborhood great, the residents and homeowners do. The Imagine Urbana Comprehensive Plan, including rezoning our historic neighborhoods like West Urbana, ignores the culture and resources of Urbana. Do no harm. This plan is bad for the city. Michael Plewa, Elizabeth Wagner, Plewa.
Thank you. Next, for public input, meeting May 19th, 2025. Please read into the record to the members of the City Council. We ask you to delay action on the Imagine Urbana Comprehensive Plan revision until the Council has received and reviewed more useful maps as requested by Liz Cardman and until there has been a housing inventory as detailed by Esther Pat and anticipated in the plan. We endorse the comments submitted by Eric Sachs. Imagine Urbana contains some useful points, especially in the ideas section, and it is also too vague, especially the maps, to address the current conditions and pressures that we face and to protect the quality of life in our city. In a university community facing significant uncertainty, whatever changes are made should be based on solid information that is relevant to present conditions. Without the housing study, we do not have the information to make appropriate tailored plans. Without detailed maps, citizens cannot give informed input. One of us, Gonzalez, was on the Plan Commission during the last comprehensive plan update, and we note that process involved very detailed maps, block by block and parcel by parcel. The current plan maps are so overgeneral with such generic descriptions that they are open to multiple, often conflicting interpretations. Before you act, this must be remedied. Please remember that over 200 residents have petitioned you about postponing action on the Imagine Urbana draft plan and containing specific suggestions for changes and improvements that should be made before approval. Please heed our requests. Thank you for your service and for accepting public input. C.K. Gonzalez and Michael Walker.
Dear Mayor Williams and council members Wu, Evans, Hersey, Cole, City Bishop, Wilkin, and Quisenberry, please read the below aloud at public comment if time permits. Thank you all. I will be out of town this evening, so greatly appreciate the opportunity to submit public comment by email. My name is Lila Leopold, and I'm a resident of Ward 4 in Urbana. I'm writing in continued support of the Police Surveillance Technology Oversight Ordinance, Ordinance number 2024-12-042. I thank all members of council for your continued discussion and serious consideration of this ordinance and hope it remains up for discussion at subsequent meetings. I hope council members and our local police leaders can see this ordinance as an urgently needed safety component for working with tools that we neither design nor fully control, and that rather as a supposed hindrance to police work, it can be seen as an integral component of keeping our community safe. That is not a criticism of police work, but a necessary component of working with technology infrastructures today. This ordinance can also play a critical role in maintaining open and honest communication in our community. We cannot say with certainty where data from tools used locally will go, or how this may inadvertently and irreparably harm the safety of any member of our community despite its intended use. Therefore, it seems especially necessary that police and the community as a whole remain in conversation about the latest tools and their use so we can all remain best informed about how to keep each other safe and how to continue operating as a sanctuary city that protects the full constitutional rights of its constituents. Thank you very much for continuing your discussion of this ordinance, which seems a necessary and forward-thinking component of 21st century governance. Also, in reference to ordinance number 2025-04-013, I've sent some feedback to the team at Imagine Urbana, but for public comment today, I wanted to emphasize how great it would be if all of the forward-thinking plans that are being made about housing, that we could consider increasing the number of single-owner and locally owned properties, and would be curious for your thoughts on this. It would also be great to hear more about plans for sustainability in terms of the environment and public health, especially as concerning pesticide drift and particulate matter in our air. How might we be able to get a green belt around our city? Green belts are around our fields to both help farmers not lose their soil to erosion, among other benefits, in addition to those for public health. We're going to be up against a lot as our physical environment continues to change, and a focus on tree belts could be one way to offer an equitable boost to community health in every ward. I also noticed the high school graduation rates, and I'm wondering if the following could be one way to help boost these that worked really well in my childhood public school system in New Jersey. Are there any options here for students who need to support their families financially or otherwise to attend high school part-time and work part-time, or to attend high school part-time and trade school or other training part-time? Initiatives like these were able to get my childhood high school graduation rate up to 97%. I would be happy to gather more details about these if there's interest. Thanks for reading and for all you do for our community. Sincerely, Lila Leopold.
Last one I have here to read for tonight is Dear City Council of Urbana and Mayor Williams. We are in support of Mayor Williams' stance in supporting economic development on Philo Road and directing resources to that Urbana community in need of a boost. A handout to greedy developers is not the way to affordable housing in Urbana. Urbana has open and vacant lots that need development. We need a policy that promotes more availability of owner-occupied starter homes in Urbana, not more rentals. As Mayor Williams said, we are experts of our neighborhoods. Living across the street from TCBC has given us years of experience and challenges to neighborhood preservation. Living next to the Church of Urbana for many years, which tried to convert 811 West Michigan Avenue to a fellowship house without a special use permit, including wanting to create a parking lot in the backyard with an added parking entrance off of Lincoln Avenue. We are no strangers to the benefit of City of Urbana requiring special use permits to propose zoning changes/uses. Special use permits may take up city staff's time, but it is a necessary requirement for zoning changes. It slows the process down, involves neighborhoods, taxpayers, and stakeholders to have a voice in the outcome, as we should. My husband and I were two of the 213 signers of the petition to the city council urging changes to the language of Imagine Urbana in order to preserve our historic neighborhood and give neighbors and city council appropriate input to zoning definitions and applications. We don't imagine Urbana the way city staff imagine Urbana. The changes envisioned by the proposed comprehensive plan would be detrimental to the reality of the neighborhood. The elimination of R1 through R3 zoning and its replacement with neighborhood designations would fundamentally allow West Urbana to turn into an R4 medium-density multifamily zone. Developers would by right be allowed to demolish homes and replace them with 3-story apartment buildings. Residents' public input and oversight by City Council is essential. We oppose designating the Lincoln-Busey corridor to allow accessory development units, duplexes, triplexes, quadruplexes, and small apartments by right. We encourage use of Urbana's central business district as the most appropriate area for high-density mixed-use business and residential development. We urge you to maintain R1, R2, and R3 zoning between Lincoln, Vine, Maine, and Florida to protect Urbana's oldest and more architecturally significant neighborhood. We want to keep the neighborhood preservation plan that was first adopted in 1990 downtown to campus plan. We urge you to adhere to existing design review guidelines for the Lincoln-Busey Corridor Overlay District and the Green Street MOR zoning district. Thank you, Sarah McEvoy and Hussein Chetoglu. Michigan Avenue. Were there any others that were asked to be read? Or last call, anyone live in the audience wish to address the committee of the whole? Okay, then that concludes public input. Next is staff report, non-scheduled. Is there any updates, staff report? Seeing none. Next is new business. First item is resolution number 2025-05-034R, a resolution approving the capital improvement plan fiscal years 2026 through 2030 from Public Works.
Good evening, Council. We're just here to revisit the CIP we brought to you a little over a month ago now. I think John's provided some updates to questions you had and some updates to the plan that have transpired since the last draft version. We'll go through a couple of those things highlighted and then open it up for any other discussion that may be lingering with all of you. If you want additional explanations or questions, this would be a good time to get those out there, and we'll be happy to discuss that.
Thanks, Tim. And I'll go ahead and pull up our website in case the website or the map are helpful to talk to while we're meeting. But like Tim mentioned, we have more than a month passed since we brought the draft capital improvement plan to you. We did include a few pages of revisions. Just to summarize for you, I was going to highlight a few of them, but happy to take any questions that anybody had. For one, I was going to bring up, we added in a new program, small annual program, miscellaneous electrical repairs, and it's added into the the local motor fuel tax fund as a replacement for an existing program that was previously funded by Public Works operating budget, primarily for engaging a contractor to respond to vehicle collision damage, if we have traffic signal cabinets or street lights, knock down other emergency electrical needs. So relatively small annual program, but definitely impactful for our operations and helpful in that regard. Another highlight, for the Country Club Road, this is Saline Branch to Broadway is actually the Country Club Road Bridge west of Broadway Avenue where the road makes a sharp curve. I was actually just given some really good news by the county earlier. County Highway Department did receive a grant for replacement of that bridge, so we'll be partnering with them. We'll have a relatively small part, but really happy to see that bridge get replaced, and sounds like the county has some good plans to make it a safer road for everybody too. So, Then in the facilities section, in the central TIF demolition, we did remove mention of the demolition of the county sheriff office and jail. That was following feedback we got from the county executive. We are keeping that allocation in FY27, about a $3 million allocation for general site remediation, demolition, or site improvements to incentivize private redevelopment within central TIF. We're just not naming a specific property at this time. So, you know, it's an allocation a couple years out, so we're not tied to it, but it's an illustration for what we'd like to try to use the TIF money for. The last thing I'll highlight here is just for, you know, we've talked about in the past how cleaning and televising of our sewers and lining of our sewers is a big effort we're wanting to make. Really, the cleaning and televising in the next 5 years is a big thing we talked about with our stormwater utility fee as well. We did have to delay what we had planned for FY25 because of the large citywide sewer data collection effort that we've been going through. And what that's been creating a situation where our maps are not in a state where we can share those out with a contractor very efficiently. So we're going to hold off doing the contract work until we get our maps in good working order. But we are looking forward to that, getting to a state within a few months that we'll be able to do a larger program in FY26 to compensate. So had that. I guess, you know, and just to emphasize too, we didn't get feedback from the public on the capital improvement plan. Had some good questions from council when we met last, but nothing additional in terms of feedback. Just curious if there are any questions for us while we're here.
Any questions? Anyone in the room? Remote, do we still have Mary Alice and Chandra? Did you have any questions?
Yeah, I do have a question. And I do recognize that we have a new administration and we have the budget coming up. But it seemed to me as I was looking through this that we're essentially committing over $5 million of our general fund to capital improvement projects before going over the proposed budget. Is that correct? That's my take on it.
Yeah, and just to kind of illustrate what you're driving at there, Mary Alice, what we did there is a year or 2 years ago, we had kind of programmed in about $1.5 million per year of general fund transfers to the CR&I to bolster the CR&I fund for additional capital needs. And all that $5 million is front loading that instead of splitting that over 4 more years. We front loaded that into this year because of the facilities improvement projects that are slated to go to construction this year.
So there's two items of expected revenue. One is just for fiscal year 2026, and then one is for fiscal year 26 to 30. So what I'm hearing you say is that every year we've been committing 1-point-something million to the CIP, and now you're front loading that. But if you're front loading that, we have the general fund for the 5 years to be 10 million, and we have the 1 year to be 5 million. Does that make sense?
So I'm trying to follow you a little bit here, but effectively, so you said 10 million for the 26 through 30. I'm trying to read this text. Sorry.
Yes.
Could we ask UPTV2 to put the screen on for the public and our remote council members? So I know there's a delay, but there's some numbers up there on the screen as well. And I think, Elizabeth, did you want to jump in if that's okay with y'all?
I think I can help. So the 10 million over 5 years includes the 5 million in the first year. So in the financial policies that have been approved by council, there's an annual transfer that's recurring. That's $1 million, give or take, and that increases every year based on the construction cost index. So this year, it's the normal amount that we would transfer. That's a recurring transfer plus the 4.5 million for facilities projects.
So we are essentially contributing for over $4 million in addition to what we typically do every fiscal year. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah, and that was, in last year's program, that was just, instead of the 1 million, that approximate 1 million that you used to see or typical of seeing, last year's program showed that as 2.5 million over 5 years effectively. And rather than spreading that out over the 5 years, we front load that into this year because of the anticipated facilities construction cost.
Well, and I'm going to add to that, if you look at the fund statement for the general fund in the annual budget document for FY25, it clearly notes at the bottom of the page that we've reserved an additional $4.5 million for additional capital improvement transfers. So it's just taking the money that's already been reserved and transferring it in next year's budget.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions from our remote council members? Or in person here?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
I had one. If you could help clarify TIF 4 timeline, and I think I've asked y'all this multiple times, and I think I'm remembering, scratching my brain, is that because TIF 4 ends December 2025, right? And so starting July 1 will be in our fiscal year 26.
Mm-hmm.
Is that why there's stuff from TIF 4 carried over into FY 26?
That's correct, yeah. And what we need to do is we need to obligate money or have, projects under contract before the end of December, and then we have 1 year to complete the work and pay it out. So that's kind of the really getting down to the nitty-gritty on the timeline.
Okay, cool, thank you. Yeah, and just for what it's worth, appreciate spending down whatever we can before that expires soon. So I appreciate that you can allocate stuff and the information that we still have a little time to spend it. Thank you.
You bet.
Any other questions or a motion?
Can I make a motion?
Yeah, go ahead, Jaya.
I'll move resolution number 2025-05-03 for our resolution approving the capital improvement plan for approval on the regular agenda, just in case there are any additional questions.
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
Second. Oh,
Okay, the delay, gotcha. I'll give that one to James. Any other discussion on this item? Yes, go ahead, Jaya.
Just as we move into budget season, I think it's important that we do keep in mind, we always bring up how under-investing, for lack of a better way of putting it, we are in our infrastructure. And so I caution anyone who thinks the city has extra money because we are not even adequately investing in the infrastructure that we have. So just want to kind of make that note of there are amazing things in this plan, but that's what we think we can do, and we're still, what was it, 20 million a year under investing in our infrastructure. So I just think it's important that we think about that, and as we're looking forward, start figuring out what are we going to do, right? Because things are going to get worse. So thanks.
Thank you. Any other last call on discussion? Okay, we have a motion by Jaya, seconded by James, to move this on to City Council regular agenda. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, please say nay. And that passes. Thank you. And the next items are 2 through 6, pretty related. Do you think we could omnibus and you could present them all together? Would anyone like to move to omnibus items 2 through 6?
I'll move to omnibus items 2 through 6. Resolution number 2025-05029R, resolution for improvement under the Illinois Highway Code, state motor fuel tax for Florida Avenue, Wright Street to Hillcrest Street. Resolution number 2025-05030R, a resolution for improvement under the Illinois Highway Code, state motor fuel tax for Florida Avenue shared use path. Resolution number 2025-05031R, A resolution for improvement under the Illinois Highway Code, state motor fuel tax for Baker's Lane shared use path. Resolution number 2025-05032R, a resolution for improvement under the Illinois Highway Code, state motor fuel tax for Colorado Avenue resurfacing. And resolution number 2025-05033R, a resolution for improvement under the Illinois Highway Code, state motor fuel tax for Vine Street and Illinois Street improvements, that they be omnibused.
Second.
Thank you. Moved by Sheree, seconded by James to omnibus all of those items, and we vote. Oh, Chris, sorry. Sorry. I'm usually not messing up the names. I'm on it tonight. And we take a vote on the omnibus. Is that right?
Correct, yeah. One vote to combine them into one item, and then one vote to forward them to council.
Any discussion on just omnibusing them? Okay, then all in favor of omnibusing, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, those are omnibused. And did y'all have a presentation to show us here?
A presentation might be a strong word, but thank you, and thank you for thank you for bringing these together. So as we've done in years past, with the CIP, there's a group of projects in the fiscal year 25 budget using state motor fuel tax funds, and as an administrative step that comes along with the city budgeting for these projects for the use of state MFT funds, IDOT requires a step where we pass a resolution for each project to appropriate the funds that we'll use. And so the way we've been approaching it is to appropriate what we need for the next fiscal year now. And we've included the project budget that's in, was I saying fiscal year 25? I was saying the wrong thing. Fiscal year 26, sorry. The project budget through fiscal year 26, it's in the CIP. Add on to that a 10% contingency so that we don't have to pass another resolution to IDOT if we go, $10 over. And then just do an accounting with if there's been any previous resolutions, and that is where the last column comes up, where we have referred to as a supplemental state MFT resolution for these 5 projects. And you hit the highlights on them here. We've got really for the Florida Avenue right to Hillcrest, big street project, and the Colorado Avenue resurfacing project. Some relatively, in the scheme of their budgets, relatively minor adjustments for some changing in the budgets compared to what we had previously. The Vine Street and Illinois Street improvements, what we had previously appropriated was just for design. This is appropriating money for the first phase of construction as well. And then for the shared use path projects, this is where we had money appropriated for what was in the grant, the ITEP grant award. But as we found that we really didn't have a robust cost estimate of the project in that early phase when we did the grant application. As design went along, we found that there were costs we hadn't accounted for in that grant application. And so that's now it's coming to a head where, okay, we're moving to construction, so now we have to appropriate the funds needed. But these are all based on budgets that we have in the capital improvement plan that we just discussed. So,
just one item of clarity with the state motor fuel tax resolutions that I like to point out is if we don't spend, anything we don't spend doesn't go away. It remains in our coffers with the state. This is an administrative way for them to track and account for this money. So if we don't spend the entirety of these funds, it allows those will go back into our pool for additional funding, just like any other project. But we try to kind of make sure that our resolution is robust enough so that we're not having to pass a bunch of resolutions when we go from plan to concept to schematic to full construction, known cost type stuff. So,
thank you. Any questions, Chris?
quick question about the Florida Avenue right to Hillcrest project. I note that you mentioned in the memorandum that in FY '27, maybe, if the federal government would be so kind, there'll be a $9 million big grant, big project to be done in FY '27. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. That'll.
Yeah. So that's a great example, Chris. So we're not trying to project too far ahead with our appropriations. We're really taking it 1 year at a time here with these. Yep.
Any other questions? Questions from our remote council members?
No, I don't have any questions.
Okay, with no further
Me
questions.
neither.
Thank you. With no further questions, would accept a motion for our omnibus items without having to read them all, just motion the omnibus ones, right?
I move that the omnibus items be moved to forward to City Council for approval on a regular agenda.
Second.
Thank you. Moved by Sharice, seconded by Chris to move those omnibus items to the regular agenda. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, please say nay. Okay, and those omnibus items pass. Thank you. Next is ordinance number 2025-05-016, an ordinance amending Schedule J of Section 23-183 of the Urbana Local Traffic Code, prohibiting parking at all times on certain streets, Harding Drive at Steer Place, 1202 East Harding Drive by Public Works.
Okay, thank you. So this one's really best told by opening a map up and dropping the little golden dude down onto the street. So we're recommending a segment of no parking on Harding Drive in front of Steer Place. This actually originated from Chief DeMondade, as he was, there's some construction that's been going on at Steer Place, and they kind of brought his attention to how they would respond to a call to Steer Place. And this got him thinking about their access, their ability to get their equipment there. And as their booms out, not the booms. What's the name for the outriggers, thank you, sorry. They're gonna extend their outriggers off the side of the truck, reach out, look like a little spider or something going out. And, this is where there's just really not space for that if we have cars parking on both sides of the street. And so that, originally Chief Dade had asked if we could do a temporary no parking while the construction was going on. As we got to talking more about it, I realized it's really a permanent situation. So just along the front of this entrance here, we're recommending a no parking on the north side of the street. It's been in effect since February as a temporary regulation, and if council is willing to adopt it as an ordinance, we can make it permanent.
Thank you. Any questions? Questions for remote members?
I guess I have one.
Go ahead, Therese.
What are how has the community dealt with the no parking for the temporary time? How's that been accepted or whatever?
We've received no feedback one way or the other.
Okay.
About the signs since they were installed. That's a good question. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions? Or would it accept a motion?
Okay, I'll move for ordinance number 2025-05-016, an ordinance amending Schedule J of Section 23-183 of Urbana Local Traffic Code, prohibiting parking at all times on certain streets, Harding Drive at Steer Place, 1202 East Harding Drive, be passed forward to City Council for approval on we don't have a consent agenda, so I guess it'd just be regular agenda.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I can second, but we also could put it on the
Okay.
consent agenda if you want to, because there are more
Make it a
things.
consent agenda, I guess, huh? Okay, we'll make it a consent agenda, Jaya.
Then I'll second.
Second, okay. Thank you. Moved by Sharice, seconded by Jaya to move this to the consent agenda. Any discussion? I would just add, as far as complaints, I also haven't heard anything, have spent some time at Steer Place since this has been there and have not seen an issue during different parts of the day. There was still enough street parking at various times of the day. So I think that this makes sense and doesn't seem to be a disruption to the local neighborhoods. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, please say nay. And that passes. Thank you. Our next item is resolution number 2025-05-028R, a resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement for participation in the Illinois Public Works Mutual Aid Network. It's like, we got Tim again. Thank you.
Yep. This is really an update. We entered into this in 2008. IPW Man is what it is, the short term of it is, but it's essentially a mutual aid agreement between us and other municipalities that partake in this for mutual aid. Commonly, it's used in emergency situations, major storm events, things like that. But what they've done is they've worked to kind of really alleviate some of the ambiguity that was never well defined in the original agreement of how do people request, aid, what are people's obligations with that type of stuff. The real takeaway is it's voluntary. People can request it. You may or may not be able to support it or may or may not opt to support it. I would tell you typically it does talk about like people could request aid during non-emergency events as well. If someone had a critical piece of equipment go down and they couldn't get rentals in and we had something that wasn't going to alleviate service, we could opt to help people with that. With this agreement, typically anything less than 5 days, nobody's trying to, you're not supposed to be recouping the cost of that, but if you go over 5 days, you can recoup that. If the state happens to request mutual aid from a municipality or something, the state will reimburse for those type of things, IEMA, stuff like that. But really the takeaway from all this is they're just trying to get something that's more solid so that people, typically what happens is whenever there's a question of do we need aid, everybody's trying to figure out how to request that aid. Who do you go to? How do you ask for that? How do you say yes? How do you say no? And they've basically tried to solidify some of that with a plan of operations that goes with this agreement. But they've updated the agreement, so they've asked everybody that's participating in IPW Man to basically re-up and sign a new agreement with some of these updated language and alleviation of some of the ambiguity.
Thank you. Any questions? I have one. Do we have we contributed or used this network in recollection in the past? I think we've asked this before. But
Not since I've been here. I don't know that we've done it before then either. I think there may have been some requests that came in 15 years ago at this point. I don't have data on that to say definitively, but there's nothing that stands out. Even when we've had some of the worst storm events, I don't know that we've requested aid in some of those scenarios. A lot of it typically, it's not that we couldn't, it's just that we haven't. And I don't know that people have requested us with some of the tornadoes and stuff that have went through the different parts of the state in the past few years, but we haven't received any robust requests for aid since I've been here, so almost 5 years.
And it's a $250 annual membership fee.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yep.
Therese.
Just while we got you at the table there, for our people at home, for our contestants at home, if you could just give an example of what kind of aid, and I think you've done this before when you came first time, but people might want to have just more information of what it means to be involved in this and we might be asked to do, our public works might be asked to do, and what aid will not just be rendered, but what aid could be rendered to us even.
Sure. Yeah, and probably the most prime example would be extreme weather events, right? Where if we get a derecho or a tornado that comes through and we have roads blocked and power lines down and sewers blocked and anything and everything, we have all hands on deck and we're not keeping up, we would request aid in that type of situation. And typically the benefit of this is when storms like that move through, it hits a line. So if it hits central Illinois, northern and southern Illinois, communities that are unaffected can render services to those that need that, where, you know, if we need to just get the power lines cleaned up, get the public health and safety things mitigated that we're not able to do in a timely fashion, we would call in for stuff like that. There are non-emergency situations that I could see this coming into play. You know, we looked at this a little bit when we were having some issues with our recycling hauler and things like that, where if we had community-wide refuse that we had no alternative for, or we couldn't get rental trucks to pick it up and do it ourselves for a week type stuff. You know, we looked at some of that with Bloomington, who has, they operate their own solid waste and recycling pickup internally, where we were kind of preparing if there was going to be an issue and we couldn't get rental trucks, you know, on call and pick it up with our staff. You know, could they provide that mutual aid type stuff for a, you know, a 1 week duration type thing?
Thank you. Where are we? Questions? Any other questions? Or motion? Yes, James?
I'll make a motion to move to City Council for approval on the consent agenda, resolution number 2025-05-028R, a resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement for participation in the Illinois Public Works Mutual Aid Network, IPWMAN.
Second.
Thank you. Moved by James, seconded by Sharice. I'm sorry, did you say regular or consent there?
Consent.
To consent agenda. Any discussion? I would say I appreciate mutual aid networks in general and appreciate you bringing this back, and hope that we don't have to use it, but hope that communities can when it is needed and we have some things to be able to offer. Any last call discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, please say nay. And that passes. Thank you. Next is resolution number 2025-05-035R, a resolution authorizing an interfund loan from the General Operating Fund to the Central Tax Increment Financing District Fund from Human Resources and Finance.
So as you know, last month, the Hotel Royer opened, which is amazing. But we have an obligation related to that, which is to pay them $5.2 million. It is $5.2 million because it was reduced by $250,000 increments based on the most recent version of the development agreement. And so to make that happen, I'm recommending that we do an interfund loan to the Central TIF Fund to pay the development agreement. And then at some point, probably right after the first of the year, we would issue debt to repay that loan. And I'm confident that we're able to do that we will have enough cash in the general fund that will not be needed that quickly. So I'm happy to answer questions, but I'm not going to drone on due to the lateness.
Thank you. Questions?
Grace, I had a question.
Yes, go ahead.
So Elizabeth, did you say that it was reduced by how much?
$300,000
They-
two $150,000 reductions. So one after December 31st and one after March 31st. Once they crossed over to April 1st, there was a second reduction.
Has there been any discussion in lowering the second amount since they did open on Did they have the certificate of occupancy a week after that deadline?
No, there's been no discussion, and the agreement was clear that the reduction took place for any fraction of the quarter, so.
And can we have a clarifying question here? It says that last time we extended the completion date to December 31st, 2024. Right, so starting January 1st, 2025 is entering the first 3-month period, is that correct?
Right, that January 1st was the start of the first 3-month period. So January 1st, there was a $150,000 reduction. Then April 1st was the start of the second 3-month period. And the agreement is clear that it was a $150,000 reduction for each 3-month period or fraction thereof.
So why doesn't that fraction thereof, why are we taking 300,000 instead of what seems like should be 200,000 if it were in 1 month into the second
No, for
quarter?
any fraction of a 3-month period, even 1 day results in a $150,000 reduction.
Oh, so we're saying the fraction of time, not that we would prorate the fraction of reduction.
Correct,
okay.
the agreement is clear.
Thank you. Sorry, Mary, I was jumping in. Did you have other question there?
No, Grace, I was along the same lines as you in terms of the fraction.
I agree. Yeah, that was
So-
not clear to me. Other questions? I had another one. Am I not understanding how TIF works? I thought that we have a decent amount of money in the central TIF fund. I'm not really understanding why we're taking out a loan and bonding money for that.
So Central TIF is a relatively new TIF, so there is not certainly this amount of money available in the Central TIF. In a newer TIF, the increment hasn't grown enough to produce the kind of revenue that we expect to see later in the life of the TIF. So the repayment of the debt, we had planned to make that repayment from revenues from the project itself. But so the revenue will start to, the project will start to generate property tax increment. It'll generate food and beverage tax, hotel motel tax, which will then repay the debt. That was the plan.
And even with the, didn't we transfer TIF 2 remaining balance into central TIF? And there's still not enough for this?
I don't recall, but no, there's not enough available at this point in time. And certainly there's some money available in the TIF, but that would hamper our ability to look at other development projects in the downtown. So the plan was all along to issue debt for the entire amount of the incentive and repay it with revenues from the project.
Okay. If I may ask if we could just have a refresher maybe for the next meeting on the central TIF balance and kind of the terms with that, because I was not entirely clear. I was under the impression that this is kind of the purpose of a TIF. Other questions, Chris?
Elizabeth, remind us that Hotel Royer has 10 years to repay the loan or the incentive development?
Well, the city has 10 years to repay the debt for the incentive. And according to our math, we believe that the hotel will generate that amount over 10 years. But the hotel is not on the hook to repay the debt. We are.
We're collecting the taxes from them to pay the debt that we took out.
Correct. We'll be collecting the taxes and setting them aside to repay the bonds. Yeah.
Grace, I have another question.
Yes, go ahead, Mary Alice.
So I'm not trying to belabor the point here, but in a nutshell, the central TIF doesn't have the $5.2 million in it. So we're basically taking money from the general operating fund and putting it into the TIF so that we can pay the developer the amount. But part of the repayment, right, or for us to be able to recoup the $5.2 million has to do with the extra sales tax and hotel motel tax and so forth, but also doesn't it have to do with the amount of new generated property tax?
Correct. Property tax increment is part of that.
And doesn't that increment of property tax go directly to the central TIF?
Correct. So when we're repaying the debt, so when we issue the bonds and we're repaying the debt, some of that revenue is going to be going into the general fund, like the hotel motel tax and the food and beverage tax. Some of it's going to be going into the TIF, but that money will be funneled through to a debt service fund to repay the debt.
Okay, I just was trying to make sure that we weren't mixing funds between the central TIF and the general operating in terms of how we were paying for this.
No. I mean, the loan from the general fund will be 100% repaid when we issue the debt, and those revenue streams that come from the project will be closely monitored and tracked to make sure they go to repay the debt.
Okay, all right.
James?
So just to get even more off track here, correct me if I'm wrong, but Fernie's High Horse and the Adventures in Space and Time are based on Central TIF support as well, is that correct?
Correct.
So if we didn't do this, we wouldn't have money to do those things?
Potentially.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, I believe we still need a motion.
I'll make a motion.
I'll move resolution.
Oh, go ahead, Chandra.
I move resolution number 2025-05.035R. I don't have the full thing.
I can read the rest of the title as a resolution authorizing an interfund loan from the general operating fund to the Central Tax Increment Financing District Fund.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Moved by Chandra, seconded by James. For regular agenda, I didn't hear consent. Is that right? Okay, makes sense. Any other discussion? Yes, James.
Yeah, I will add, it's been clear to me from the beginning that we were going to bond this and pay it back with the list of things, including, I think, the boutique hotel tax that we created, particularly to augment how this development will pay back the incentive that we offered it. That was the plan from the beginning, so I am supportive of moving forward with this.
Thank you. Other discussion? Yes, I would, if possible, appreciate just some more information on the central TIF. I'm looking at the FY25 budget, a little confused on if we actually expended $7.3 million from central TIF in 2024. That maybe just an update for the next time, if we could just have a little bit of a history and current status of TIF 4 funding level.
Sure.
Thank you. Any last call discussion items? Okay, we have this item for approval going to City Council regular agenda. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. And that passes. Thank you all. And our last item of new business is ordinance number 2025-05-017, an ordinance revising the annual budget ordinance, budget amendment number 9, present settlement hotel Royer incentive.
So as a budget amendment, you know, this requires 6 affirmative votes, and so it should not be placed on the consent agenda. This is probably the simplest budget amendment you've seen all year because there are only 2 items here, and one of them is the $5.2 million incentive payment for Hotel Royer, which we just discussed, needs to be budgeted before we're able to pay that. And then the second item is an amount, is an increase of just short of $1.5 million to pay a settlement related to the final remaining property tax dispute cases. And this is related to the Presence case that involved 58 parcels that were owned by Presence as of 2015. The amount of the payment, looking for that here in my notes. Oh, is 1.498 million roughly. And so I ask you to move this onto the agenda so that we can take care of both of those items.
Thank you. Any questions? Or a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 2025-05-017, an ordinance revising the annual budget ordinance, budget amendment number 9, present settlement hotel Royer incentive.
Second.
Moved by Jaya, seconded by Sharice for regular agenda. Any discussion? Okay, we can do a voice vote here, right? But we'll do roll call at real council. Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. And that passes. Thank you. Next, that concludes all of our new business. We have unfinished business and a discussion item left. Looking at the time here, I do have kind of a whole can of worms to open on a presentation on the police surveillance thing. I can condense my can of worms as quickly as possible, but I think that ultimately we will probably continue this in COW, and I imagine the comprehensive plan, up for council members here tonight to decide, but I would have us maybe consider keeping unfinished business and knock out at least the discussion item for tonight. If people wanted to hold off on opening up the whole can of worms on this next item. Yes, James?
Would you be okay with a motion to keep both of these in committee?
I
That being
am
said,
okay with that. Others?
Can I do that? Can I move to keep both of them in committee, or should I do it one at a time?
I am going to recommend that we do them one at a time,
Okay.
just because we didn't do this under additions to the agenda and they're not an omnibus, so just for cleanliness.
Thanks. I'll move that ordinance number 2024-12-042, an ordinance establishing approval, policy, and reporting requirements for the policing, surveillance technology, and databases be retained in committee until the next committee of the whole meeting.
Second.
Thank you. We have moved by James, seconded by Mary Alice to keep this item in the committee of the whole. Any discussion? Yes, Jaya.
Yeah, I'm glad this is back on the agenda and look forward to discussing it at the next COW. I totally agree with not opening a can of worms at almost 10 o'clock at night, because this deserves time and attention, but also it's time to give it the time and attention. So I'll look forward to seeing this back in the next COW.
Thank you. Yeah, I would just echo that I definitely support moving this forward, absolutely plan to, but yeah, agree that we need to maybe finish out the night and maybe the budget cycle and then give this the full attention. And I do appreciate some of the continued discussions offline and continued public input. So I do feel like we'll be able to pick this up when we can. Any other discussion on this? Anything from remote members? Seeing none, we'll do a vote to keep this surveillance ordinance in committee of the whole. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. And that passes. Thank you. And next we have ordinance number 2025-04013, ordinance approving the comprehensive plan. If someone was interested in a motion for that, potentially to keep that in COW also.
Yeah, I'll make that too.
Sure.
I'll move that we keep ordinance number 2025-04-013, an ordinance approving a comprehensive plan, Imagine Urbana Plan Case number 2502-CP-25, in the committee of the whole for our next meeting.
Second.
Thank you. Moved by James, seconded by Jaya to keep that in committee of the whole. Any discussion? would just remind folks one more time that there is the listening session here tomorrow, 6 to 8 p.m., where you can give continued feedback on that plan. And then no other discussion. All in favor on that item, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. And that passes. Thank you all. And then our last item is a discussion on council rules and meeting procedures. I'm the sponsor, but I think the clerk has a good rundown and a nice memo that they've provided us with. So I don't know if you're interested in kicking us off with a presentation for this discussion.
Sure, thank you, Grace. So this item was placed on the agenda at the request of Chair Wilkin. However, this is an item that many of you have brought to my attention over the last year, and that is basically kicking off discussions, revisiting the resolution that adopts the council rules and meeting procedures. So this council adopts its own rules to govern itself within the confines of state law, of course. And the last resolution was amended was in January of 2021, and that was via resolution 2021-01-003R, which was the resolution provided in the packet, which is the most current version of the council rules. I did also provide a couple of bullet points of points that council has brought up for consideration, which these are just suggestions pulled purely from my memory. I am in no way making suggestions to the council on what their rules should be or what their changes should be, but briefly I will state the considerations that I included in the memo. The first being consideration of rotating voting order so as to remove any potential strategic advantage to voting order based solely on ward number. The second being consideration of language used to address members of the body, examples such as council member as a prefix, usage of first or last names, etc., just formalizing how you are addressed. The third provided was clarifying language regarding how a chair of committee of the whole may participate in meetings. Clarifying language stating the chair must be relinquished to make motions or enter debate, as the sharing of chair of COW is meant to be partaking in administrative duties and should not preclude you from participating as a fully voting member of the body. An additional bullet point that I will add now that I had in my notes and failed to include in the memo, I do apologize, was clarifying language regarding how items are placed on the agenda, because that has been an item that I have had numerous questions about. So just a suggestion, perhaps clarification about that process as well. Again, this is purely a discussion item, the intention being, especially given the late hour, that this will be an item that you guys continue to discuss over a series of meetings. The clerk's office is happy to take notes based off of feedback, and once a consensus on general suggestions, if any, are reached, the city clerk's office will prepare a revised version of the resolution based off of that feedback, which will come to a future committee of the whole meeting for further consideration and possible adoption. But this is your rules, not to give you homework, but this is just the kickoff. Thanks.
Great. Thank you so much for starting us off with that. And again, just a discussion item, so open discussion, but I think that in the end, it would be nice to have some kind of general direction, if possible, for where to go from here. Yes, James?
As the person who has sat in Chair 7 for 4 years, I have to say that from the very beginning, I was concerned with how that impacts voting, because it means I always get to see what everybody else has done before I get to vote. And that's, I feel, an unfair advantage. And I think I've suggested this in the past. I suggest that we adopt a rotating voting sequence that would be dependent on, as Grace is the chair for the committee of the whole now, it would start with the next person and go around, so the chair votes last, which is actually a reasonable practice, I would say, for a roll call vote. And then that we would keep that same order in the city council meeting based on the report, who's the chair of the committee of the whole reporting. I think that moves it around. You never have to ask who do you start with. It's the person next to the chair for that meeting, or who's reporting out as the chair. All the other things you mentioned, I think, are great things to discuss. I don't have particular items to say about them. I would like to ask, our language about the situation with conflict of interest in voting is not really clear. I believe, I have a thing that I believe. It says you have to declare a conflict of interest, but you don't have to declare what it is, and you can pass as, or not vote. You have the right to not vote as a third option, essentially. I believe a conflict of interest, that's been interpreted that you don't have to say what the conflict of interest is. I think the way it reads to me, it's you don't have to justify why you feel there's a conflict of interest. I do think at any time, if you're sitting in front of the public and you say, I can't vote on this because of a conflict of interest, you don't have to justify that, but you do have to say what you believe it is. Or what is the reason why you don't feel you can vote? And so I'd like clarification on that. And I would like clarification on not voting to be a specific word that says, whether it's present or past or whatever it is we agree on, it says, I'm choosing not to vote on this topic at this time, as opposed to it being less clear.
Do you think abstain covers that currently, if I may?
I do not believe that abstentions currently cover that, because as I understand, abstentions, similar to recusal, are predominantly for explicitly stated conflict of interest. A vote of present or a refusal to vote at all, or just not saying aye or nay or abstain. I do believe there is a provision, perhaps outside of the council rules within city code, regarding voting procedures that might be from a prior version of council rules. I want to look into it, but the section that I am recalling at this moment details how votes are to be counted, so that certain times a present vote can be considered with whatever the majority vote of the council is. And I believe that that only occurs in a specific circumstance, and I want to grab that language out for you guys so that we can examine it as part of this, because I think if we are going to consider such changes, we should consider that as well, like what's already written, perhaps in a different place regarding this, and revisit it in its totality.
Thank you. Other discussion, Jaya?
Yeah, thank you, Grace and Darcy, for bringing this forward. I think it's a really important conversation. I do remember James bringing this up 4 years ago, right, in terms of the rotation. I think especially as the representative from Ward 7, that's admirable, right? Like that the current situation could potentially benefit you. So I like your suggestion. I think it will make it a lot easier to track that rotation, but I do support the idea of having a rotating order for voting. Just my initial thoughts on other pieces, I do think, Darcy, the thing you brought up today, clarifying, I'll be honest, it's really helpful just to see the language from the last time this was done, because there has been so much debate about the process for putting things on the agenda. I actually don't think that there's necessarily, for me, a problem with how it's written, but then we need to make sure that that's actually abided by. For Cow, it very clearly says one council member can put things on the agenda, and that has not been consistently the feedback that council members have received. I agree, people should do their homework, see what else stands out in terms of potentially needed changes. In terms of language to address council members, I don't mind that we're Urbana and we're a little bit less formal and use first names, but I think if we're going to use last names using, like we did tonight, trustee or council member, I've seen the clerk's office doing this, just to avoid gendered language is my preference. And then, I think making sure it's clear that the chair of the committee of the whole can still participate in meetings, and what that process looks like. I agree with that. I think that those are the big things that I've seen come up in terms of this process as well.
Thank you. And if I may, I think also with clarifying how items are added, and then also what types of items are added, and to make it clear that any sort of item, whether it be a budget amendment or an ordinance or things like that, that can be presented in the same fashion by council. I think that's what we're, a clarifying level of that point. Yes, Sharice?
You just said that, and that's something I'm going to disagree with, because I think when you have a budget item or something, it should be somebody, it should be two council members that bring that together, not just one, mainly because it affects, it's something that's, you know, if you're going to present something differently than that, to me, it should be, you know, like if you want to give information or something like that. But when it's something that's going to affect possibly what someone's getting ready to present, maybe to the COW, I think it's just a better consensus if two people actually bring that rather than just one council member. What I was going to say before that, before this was, and I don't see it in here, and that's basically on the council input and how we are limited to 3 minutes. And even when we made this rule, I didn't like it, because I think that we should have at least 5. That is what the public has, and I have yet to come across a time when we didn't have at least that much to say. Sometimes we don't, but if we don't, that's fine. But I think we should also have the same amount of time. The other thing is regarding when the mayor has something to say. Sometimes it takes more than that 3-minute thing. So I think that if a mayor, in particularly, and you know, I know you can speak for yourself, but but it was just something that I've observed over the past few years. The mayor has information to pass on to the public, and they should have the opportunity to take as long as they need to get that information passed through the public. Whether it's 5 minutes, 6 minutes, because it always depends upon what the information is. But when you're trying to pass information on to the public, sometimes you got a whole list of stuff that you need to say, and you need to be able to get that out without somebody saying, okay, your time is up. You know, I don't think that's cool. The other thing that, right now, I think that's it for now, as far as what I would want to add or amend in this particular thing.
I hear you, and I have observed the same thing, that frequently the only member of this body who sometimes has so much to share that they hit that 3-minute mark has historically been the mayor. The mayor could also, and has historically, provided announcements during reports of officers on council agendas. And also, the same section is named differently, but it's named staff report on committee of the whole. Obviously, the mayor is maybe not traditionally regarded as staff, but that is another avenue available at this time prior to any revisions that we may consider as well.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. James?
Yeah, I'm going to take the question about the agenda a little bit deeper, and I guess I would ask who owns the agenda? And I think there's something to be said for items considered on the agenda belonging to the mayor from a standpoint of it requires staff support for those kinds of things to come forward. And but I would say the discussion portion of the committee of the whole clearly belongs to council. So there's some ownership question there that I don't think I understand completely. I would suggest that if it's something that's owned by the mayor, if it's a portion that's owned by the mayor, I would actually prefer to see a majority of a quorum required to put something through with that, because that implies that there are enough people that are interested on council to push it forward, potentially even if the mayor didn't want it considered. And that's the question, right? Are we working well with the mayor, and is the mayor taking our requests and moving on them with staff's support, or are they not? And I would say, I'm concerned because I don't think anybody has abused this at this point, but allowing any one council member to put things on the agenda means that one person has more control than I think they should have over the time that the body has. For discussion, maybe I would agree with that. For business of the council, which is the other part of the agenda, I'm not sure I agree with that.
So, if I may?
Yes.
In both state law and city code, the clerk technically owns the agenda because the clerk is the one responsible for preparing it. However, as outlined in our city code and our council rules, the procedure for how items are added to the agenda. And as I was led to believe by the prior administration's interpretation of the agenda, the clerk also does not have the authority to place items directly on the agenda, but they are the ones responsible for preparing it, managing it, and putting it all together. That being said, I have said no to titles and formatting of things. I have also altered the order of things based off of my area of expertise in relation to the agenda. That being said, I want to ask a clarifying question, if I may. So what I have in my notes is that you were suggesting, perhaps for additions to a council agenda, not a cow agenda, that a majority of a quorum of members would put something through, which, to clarify, that would be 3 council members would be required to sponsor an item for it to be placed on the council agenda, whereas presently, 1 member has the authority to place a member exclusively on a cow, which is not final action, but 2 are required to place an item on council. So did I capture that accurately, James, that you were suggesting that it be changed from 1?
I'm just putting that out there because in my mind, it's a challenge between mayoral authority and council authority.
Gotcha.
Because my understanding is for the last 4 years, what's on the agenda has come from the mayor's office, for the most part.
Not exclusively.
We have an agenda setting meeting every Tuesday morning, unless, of course, we are having a Tuesday meeting after a Monday holiday, where the Office of City Administrator or Executive's Office or the Office of the Mayor has asked the various departments what items are coming before the council. So they're kind of like the organizer and have made suggestions on the timing of items based off of like the length of agendas. Does that help clarify?
Are council members ever present at that?
No.
Has that historically been the case?
Council members are not permitted at that meeting, no.
I understand that at one point the mayor pro tem would occasionally participate with that.
That predates my experience in the
Mine
last
too,
4 years.
But that's the legend that I've heard.
You, Jay?
Yeah, I think that we should be careful about planning for any particular mayor or council. That assuming that people will play well together has not been my experience on council so far. So while I am very excited for things to be done differently, I don't want to set rules that presume that mutual respect will continue. Not saying that I expect things to change, but I think if we're talking about setting rules, and these were set before the last council, right? So this is what the last council operated under without having an opportunity to have a say. So I think it's good that we're having this conversation, but we can't talk about what might be put on an agenda with a majority of quorum. That would be a violation of the Open Meetings Act, right? So in order for us to be able to get something on an agenda to have the discussion, I actually think the rules as they stand seem appropriate, right? Like, yes, if we're talking about the city council meeting, where it's more likely that, final action might take place, making sure that there's at least some support for that makes sense. But if we're just talking about getting something on the committee of the whole agenda, to me, in some ways, I'm not just trying to suggest it's not important. But this is the space we have discussions, and I think it's going to become very clear if there's just not support in moving something forward in committee of the whole. But I think we do have a process for making it so it doesn't take up too much time and energy if it's just one person. But also, if it is one person, they still represent their ward, right? So maybe there's something that's particular to that one ward where even if we can't, as a body, agree this is something we need to move forward, still needs to get some time and attention. I mean, I think about Dr. Ellis, right? Like, how many years were you talking about that? And it took more momentum and more opportunities to actually get it beyond being viewed as a Ward 3 issue, right? But if people are never talking about it, how do we know what to move on when the opportunities come up? So I personally think, you know, in terms of representing our constituents, having the opportunity as an individual council member to say, I think this should be on the agenda for committee of the whole, because that's where we have the discussion. I think that's still important. I understand it for city council where we're trying to get through business of saying we need to have at least a second person, but I personally would keep the current structure for that and make sure that we are adhering to it consistently.
Thank you. Anyone else who hasn't chimed in for discussion yet? Remote council members?
Yeah, I have a couple of items, Grace, if I can speak.
Sure.
So one, I as the representative of Ward 1, I get the opposite end of the voting order, and I like the suggestion that James has for rotating it based on the chair. I think that's a good one. I also agree with Jaya in terms of the language used. I'd like to just admit that. I mean, generally speaking, we either call people council member or by their first name or their last name. And clarifying the language on how the chair of COW can participate makes sense to me. I actually agree with James in terms of putting something on the council agenda and having 3 people put something on the council agenda. I'd like to propose that in the committee of the whole, if it's an agenda item, it's not a discussion, so it's actually a resolution, it would make sense to have 2 people and then 1 person for discussion, if that makes sense. I know it makes it a little more complicated, but it kind of makes logical sense to me. I don't know what other people's thoughts are. And then my last thought was with the budget ordinance. I hesitate to suggest that council members can write a budget ordinance because budget ordinances always have a balance between money spent versus where the money's which line item the money's coming from. And I do understand the desire of council members wanting to propose something. So I'm wondering if the middle ground could be a vote of some kind, a straw poll or whatever, on whether or not council would like to dedicate money to a certain project, and then asking the budget office to come up with some options in terms of how we balance that.
Thank you. Chandra, did you have anything at this time?
Hi, yes. So I agree with what James said in the beginning about the rotating votes. I'd like to see that happen. I like what Mary Alice just said about 1 for discussion, 2 for a resolution, and 3 for a city council agenda item. I think that's all. Thanks.
Thank you. Yes, Darcy, do you have something to add?
I'm going to make a suggestion, and like, feel free to tell me no, but as 3 is a majority of a quorum and we could run into OMA violations, perhaps adding language such that it's only 2 people that are talking at a time. So if it's like 1 person, this is their baby that they want to bring to the agenda, and it's on them to call the other 2 members and ask them to be sponsors individually, as opposed to like a group call or a group text, like just some parameters to ensure that we are not violating the intent of the OMA.
Thank you. And I've got second rounds of inputs, things.
I just wanted to say that our attorney used to work at Champaign, and they require 5 council members for something to be on the agenda. So if you could speak to how that works with OMA.
Yeah, so that's for what they call a study session, which is the equivalent of a committee of the whole presentation, essentially, the preliminary discussion. The way that something would come to that directly from the council would be with 5 signatures on a document that describes the study session request, essentially. And that's how they do it. They circulate the document. That could be done a different way, but it's essentially a one-to-one, no group discussion sort of format. So.
Clarifying question, Matt. Study sessions are not resolutions, they're not ordinances, and they're not budget amendments, correct? There's no final action ever taken at a study session.
That's correct.
Okay.
And I saw the clerk's hand up, and also looking at time, unless we're going to wrap this up in the next 6 minutes, I would welcome a motion to extend.
I think this is going to take additional conversation, so I'd rather not extend tonight.
I would appreciate if someone would. I still would like to speak, and we also have council input. I don't know if anyone's willing to go like 10:45. We don't have to do 11.
I'll move to extend the meeting until 10:45.
Any second? Okay, seeing none. Jay, would you mind taking the chair, please?
I'll take the chair. Chair recognizes Grace.
Thank you. I agree with the main kind of first presented points here. I think that limiting council's ability to add things to committee of the whole is absolutely not what I'm in agreement with. That is the meeting of the representatives, and I think it is absolutely within our right to add things there. We have had multiple items that have been initiated by a single council person or 2 that have ended up being really important, sometimes unanimously agreed upon items of business that have passed, and I think that any limitations to our open process and procedures is just not the right direction, in my opinion. I also think it's important to keep limitations on whoever the chair is, including the mayor. Like with council input, I think having the mayor an unlimited time while also being chair is what we've brought up as being problematic potentially. So I don't think we've really gotten a consensus. We're running out of time here, but hopefully you have some notes so that we can continue the discussion.
Would you like the chair back?
Yes, thank you. And pass to the clerk.
I was just going to suggest, based off of my notes, that I could prepare a similar memo and we could consider straw polls on some of the notes individually at the next meeting so that we have a little bit more consensus and direction towards possible edits and further discussion.
Thank you. Any last things?
I would
Yes,
just ask
James.
if we could do that as discussion at the city council meeting.
Yes, are you wanting to do that at the city council meeting on June 2nd or the next regular one, which will be the following Monday after June 2nd?
I was suggesting the things we seem to have consensus on, we could agree on it on June 2nd, but if you don't want to do it, then I'd wait for the committee of the whole.
We can find another council member and add that to the council agenda. Any other discussion on that note? Okay, next is council input and communication. Any council input? Any from our remote participants? Okay.
No, thank you.
Yes, Jaya, go ahead.
So this is actually back to the last item, sorry, but we're rushing here. I would just challenge this body to not limit our authority. This governance system already puts a lot of power in the hands of the mayor. And I think that we have a responsibility to make sure that we're creating a balance. And so any limits of individual or group council members' authority should be taken very seriously in our discussion about council rules.
Thank you. Any other last call? Okay, seeing none with no further business, we are adjourned.
That's all right.
Oh.
I got it.
Can I
Just a
take it
quick
back?
comment. I just want to.
Okay, sorry, Chris, go ahead.
I just want to concur with Councilmember Colsetti and Wilkin that limiting or somehow making it harder for council members to put things on the agenda is the wrong direction to be going, and I don't think we should be doing that.
Thank you. Okay, now, with no further business, we will adjourn.